This is Chris Birch from Modifius, and this is the Modifius slot. I hope you've been rejuvenated by the wonders of a very special and very bad movie. Otherwise, welcome to us talking about Modifius games, what's happening right now and what's coming up next. And you will have noticed that this is going to be a panel in English for obvious reasons. I'm also going to give Chris his name for anyone joining us, so you know who he is. Pop. There you go. Hello, Chris. How have you been?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to have you here. We are going to talk about a few different games at Modifius, and well, looking behind you, I can already see a Dovahkiin. So,
which way am I going? There we go.
Yes. So you probably are going to talk about Call to Arms, but there's a few other things.
Yeah.
I don't have a strict order in mind that we have to talk about, but let's maybe start with Call to Arms, if there's anything new coming out for that.
Well, there is, yes.
Very good.
With miniature games, there's always something new coming. And what did we just release? We just released a Skeleton Horde, of course. And we've got some other exciting things coming soon. I've been working away on a thing called Fanehold, that is a big solo campaign that is designed to take you through from the lowly depths of a prison cell, as always happens in Skyrim, to running a settlement and going off on missions and having kind of seeing this evolving quest build up based on the choices you make, and a big nemesis that could be different depending on the choices you make. So that's going to be interesting.
I remember talking about you working on this solo campaign quite a while back, but that's kind of
it's taken a while.
It's getting a bit more definition now, so I like the settlement part.
I was designing it with another fantastic guy called Ivan Sorensen, who he has his own games company called Nordic Weasel, and they do lots of little solo war games and co-op war game.
Okay, Nordic Weasel is an amazing name for a company.
So we've been kind of doing the design work, and now we've handed it over to the development team, which I also run, but I've given it to the development team for them to go off and do their thing with it and make it better, hopefully.
Okay, but basically you've handed it off. You handed it off to yourself, just with a different hat.
Yeah. So hopefully that will get done in the next kind of month or so. But yeah, we've got lots of cool stuff. There's the Steam and Shadow chapter coming up soon, which, if you can guess, is Steam is Dwemer.
Dwemer, yes.
Dwemer constructs. So there's already been some pictures in Modifia, our free magazine, and online. And then Shadow is, of course, the Dark Brotherhood. So lots of people with cloaks and little stabby daggers. So
yes. Each Dark Brotherhood storyline broke my heart when I played it, because you have to do so mean things. But
yes, that's true.
Dwemer is very interesting because of the unique and cool design.
I love the Dwemer storylines. I'm always trying to do Dwemer cities when I'm playing Skyrim, and I'm on my second playthrough. As you go, you just kind of go to places, and there's a man with a quest, and there's a woman that needs some help to kill someone else, or there's a girl that's my favorite one is, I can't remember her name now, but she's a ghost that you meet in a Dwemer city, and you find her bow on her body, and then you get this cool bow, and then you're looking for, I think it's the big forge where you eventually fight a load of big constructs and get to make an amazing weapon.
Oh yeah.
This staff that summons Dwemer constructs, which is pretty awesome. So let's go. Zap. Guardian, Zap, Spider. Yeah.
So we're going to see Dwemer constructs.
You are, yes.
Talking about Skyrim and Dwemer, I always also have to think about the Falmer, about the former snow elves living underground.
Yes, yeah, they're coming later. So we did this survey where we kind of wanted to find out what people wanted, and so we've kind of based on that, it kind of steers our plans, because we knew what was really big, but we kind of wanted to see what the community liked. So Falmer were lower down the list, but Dwemer were much higher, and Dark Brotherhood. And of course, you can't do everything, which we would love to do. So you have to, with the available kind of sculptors and the sets that we normally release, because we normally put out about 3 sets for a new faction. So so we have to think, well, okay, what can we fit into each wave? So, but yeah, the Falmer are coming definitely later on, and just having lots of fun with that. There's lots of new creatures. There's frostbite spiders coming. There's all sorts of cool stuff, trolls and things in the next few months.
Oh, trolls!
Yeah,
my nightmare.
Yeah. And then, of course, well, the reason I have this picture up is because we just announced the Skyrim board game, which is coming to GameFound in a few months. And that was our big announcement a week ago. Well, actually, we didn't announce it. GameFound announced it. They're a platform a bit like Game on Tabletop, which is basically a tabletop focused version of Kickstarter. It's got a lot more interesting tools in it, and we're using it to effectively, do it's a big pre-order, but also we might hopefully unlock a few extra special upgrades, and we're just building up to make sure everything's ready and everything's sculpted and the factory's ready to go before we launch the project. But that's a cooperative 1 to 4 player board game, so you're going to be running around Skyrim together, which is brilliant.
Okay, so as a party of heroes, so everyone.
Yeah, I mean, you can go off and do your own thing. You can go off and do. You might go off and do a quest on your own. You will each have a quest that you're following, and the quests have branching structures, and the game could be completely different every time you play it, because of course, you depending on, as you know, with Skyrim, you might be an Imperial. And then decide to go all, you want to be the tank with the heavy arm, the glass armor, and the big double-handed, warhammer, or you might want to go magic. So, it's anything goes, and we've been able to capture that, which is cool. But, I might say, hey, do you want to meet me at these ruins to do the dungeon? Because it's a bit, it's probably going to be harder, and if we do it together, we'll both get some cool treasures. So it's got a lot of cooperation. And you will have to work together to defeat the main plots. But you are each on your own stream of the big plot.
Okay.
So it's gonna be very interesting, I think, to see how people experience it.
That sounds big. First of all, that sounds Skyrim big.
Yeah. This isn't a $30 little quick game that you play. This is a proper deep experience.
And is it going to be like with a storybook where you can look up different stages, or is it
not storybook, but cards? So it means it's actually quite clever, because it means there's a lot of cards, but it means we can do some quite clever things with the way the decision you make might affect my quest, and vice versa.
Okay.
So, without going into too much detail, so we've got a quite clever system. So yeah, more detail to come. But people can sign up on the if you go onto GameFound, you can find the Skyrim, or if you go on our webpage, you can find it. There's a page that you can sign up on to get more information.
What kind of heroes then can you play? What kind of range are you looking at?
Well, it's really anything, because there is no archetype in Skyrim. There isn't like pick the fighter or the magic user. You are a Nord or a Breton or a Khajiit, for example. And it's really down to what skills do you choose to take? What do you work on? I mean, that's the beauty of Skyrim. You really can be anything. It's not like I remember starting off, I had a bit of magic and a bit of sword, and now I've just gone, I've gone full on ranged bow. I just kill everything from a distance.
Which is very effective. Sneaking and bow, and you can clear basically.
I remember actually I recently played a mission where there was this really hard, I think it was a vampire lord or something. I just kept dying, and then one day I just ran away, and I somehow, I don't know, when you're panicking, I backed against a wall, And then he came and stood in front of me. And for some reason, he didn't turn around. So I was just shooting him in the back of the head, and I managed to defeat him. Which it was quite a relief, but it felt like a bit of a hollow victory.
Yes, it sounds like it's not a tactic you should usually use.
No. Yeah.
What I was rather asking is there going to be miniatures, or is there going to be tokens? How do we see our heroes in the game?
A bit of both. I can't go into too much detail yet, but yes and no.
Okay. You are going to see some kind of thing
that's going to be
standing in for your hero.
There'll be some cool components, and obviously taking it to GameFound means that we can do some really fun upgrades as well.
Okay. So, when's it going to start?
With those games, that if you put too much plastic in, it's going to be crazy expensive.
Yeah.
And we want to be able to take it to retailers, so you can get it in your local store, and that. Really, you can't make a £300 game or euro game that can sell in retail. Just no one's going to buy it. I mean, a few people will buy it, but it's that real tricky balance that the base game has to be, commercial. That it's not an insane price that stores will take some. Affordable. Yeah.
For the general player. When is it going to start the campaign?
Let's say summer.
Summer.
So it's
that's broad enough.
A few months away. It's long enough for us to get everything ready. So when we start, we'll be able to show you the game. It's going to be on Tabletop Simulator, so you can even try the game. You can read the rules. There's going to be an interactive demo to try.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I remember that you do quite a lot with virtual tabletop versions of your games. So.
Yeah, we did. We put Elder Scrolls Call to Arms is on there, the whole starter set with all the miniatures, beautifully made. The Fallout 2-player starter set, the miniatures game, is also on there with all the miniatures, all free to download, so people can try it out. Okay.
Good. That is quite some news, but we've got a few other games I'd like to talk about, and one of them is, as always, for some time now, the Star Trek Adventures. What is going on there? Because that's one of, our favorite lines.
Yeah. So lots happening with Star Trek. We're building up to, we've got this beautiful tricorder set coming. I think I told you about a long time ago, maybe the last time, maybe at Essen. But it's, if you can imagine, it's the world's first wearable role-playing game.
Yeah. I remember that you have a tricorder in basically in the tricorder is a game.
Yeah, it's actually a tricorder from the original series, and the top of the tricorder opens with the little readout printed, and inside you've got a digest version of an original series version of the Star Trek core book, rather than Next Generation, and then it's a set of dice. And you're good to go. And there's also a little, I think, a campaign booklet. So it's like a collector's edition, original series, wearable, cool box as a tricorder. I don't think I need to say any more.
No. I get it now why it has to be original series, because you can't fit a game into the TNG tricorder. Or it would be really, 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 really tiny.
Yeah, oh, yes. Yeah, it would be a bit small. So that's really fun. And then we've also got the Shackleton Expanse campaign coming, which is if anyone took part in the Living campaign that we did right at the beginning, we have like 15,000 people playing across 3 different types of ships they could choose from in the Shackleton Expanse. And I think it's got a really nice story behind this, because I love the episode Yesterday's Enterprise of TNG, where, if you don't know it, the Enterprise crew, Picard and Riker, etc., turn up, but they're wearing different uniforms, and it looks very militaristic, and they see another Enterprise come through, battered and broken from a kind of rift in space. And of course, Guinan is like, there's something wrong. And the long and short of it is that it's an Enterprise. It's an Enterprise from the past that was supposed to be destroyed, saving the Klingons in the system Narendra 3, I think, from an attack by Romulans. And so they have to send the ship back to its death. back through the rift to be destroyed, because as a result, the Klingon and Federation treaty was formed, as because the Klingons were saved by them, and of course, because at the moment the ship is in their time, they're now still at war with the Klingons. So it's a great episode. And so what we proposed to CBS was that, wouldn't it be great, is as a result of that honourable, act by the Federation, that ship, that they created a joint space station, which we called Narendra Station. And it's in this area of space called the Shackleton Expanse that we picked. That was a big open area on the map. And so we've got a kind of joint Klingon Federation task force on this space station, and a whole bunch of ships that operate out of it. And there's a whole deep storyline that was also inspired. If you know your Star Trek, you'll know that Gene Roddenberry was somewhat inspired by Forbidden Planet, the classic old color, Technicolor. It's like, I think it's the same era as The Wizard of Oz. It's that old. But it's an amazing old sci-fi film that is basically Shakespeare's Tempest, but it's set in the future. And it's got Robbie the Robot on it, and this kind of crew of, no, it's not the Federation, but like a uniformed crew of people. I think it's all men, of course, just like a Navy crew. And I think he was inspired by that. And I loved the story of this movie, which is about, in the movie, there is the Krell, the original people who lived on this planet, built this vast underground city that goes for thousands of levels and hundreds of miles in every direction. And they tapped into the power of the mind, the id. And I won't tell you too much because it's a really brilliant film. You should go and watch it, and it's awesome. And so we that story somewhat inspired our big epic plot in Shackleton Expanse. There's a really wonderful story with the kind of classic Star Trek tropes in it, sort of classic endings and dilemmas and moral dilemmas and things. So I'm really excited because that's kind of where my first love came out, in kind of helping to kind of bring that Star Trek line to life. And the team, Jim Johnson, who's the lead on the team, the line editor and one of the lead writers, he's done a brilliant job. We've been working with Dayton Ward, who's one of the big Sunday Times best-selling authors of Star Trek books, who's also now working as part of the Star Trek approvals team, which is quite handy because me and him conceived the plot right at the beginning.
And then you can go, this sounds good.
I know. I mean, we've been lucky that the team is so passionate about Star Trek. Most of the changes we get back are like, oh, you didn't italicize Enterprise, So
okay, easy
I don't
to
think
fix.
we've ever had anything where they're like, no, that wouldn't happen, So it shows that they're doing a good job.
Yes. When in the timeline is this going to be set? Because someone in chat also pointed out, having this joint venture of Starfleet, of the Federation, and the Klingons is absolutely amazing, and probably also good for the people who have the Klingon core book and things like that. But it could be awkward when we go into the DS9 timeline and then suddenly you're at war again.
It is set, I believe, just before that, and then I think we've got some events where, of course, the Klingons start to pull out, and then there's a lot of, drama on the station because, they're trying to, keep the, it's a science-led expedition or kind of joint effort. But of course, they've both got militaristic sides and agents on the station. But it's a great fun, it's this kind of meeting of two cultures in one space station. You've got a Klingon area of the station, and you've got, Federation areas and, all Starfleet areas. And so, of course, there's all sorts of friction.
Yes. Lots of blood, wine, and gar.
Yes. Or prune juice, maybe.
Prune juice. It's a warrior's drink.
Yeah.
Did you already say when this is going to be out? Or?
Sometime later.
Later.
They're working on it, and I think it's probably towards the end of the year, off the top of my head.
Okay. I also want to talk about Achtung Cthulhu. because you're revamping and re-releasing Achtung Cthulhu, and how's that coming along? What's the stage right now?
It goes on pre-order on Tuesday.
Oh,
It's come along really suddenly. We've been working on it for like 2 years, and so it's what we wanted to do is the original edition was brilliant because that's obviously what started the company. But what I really wanted to do was add a lot more crazy secret plots and evil factions. So we've added in write-ups on the deep ones and the Migo. There's a lot more kind of strange technology, and there's a lot more information on Nacht Wolfer and the Black Sun, our two kind of protagonist organizations within the Nazis, and a lot more information on Majestic and Section M, who are the kind of allied heroes, kind of working to defeat them. And
I was about to say, when you say protagonist organizations, that means the important organization, not that you're playing as actually the Nazi cultists.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yes,
just to be sure.
The evil bad guys. Yeah. So they're very different. Like the Black Sun are the magic users, the sorcerers who work with the mythos creatures, and they're trying to free Yog-Sothoth from the valley of from the Black Sun. And then you've got Nacht Wolfer, who are led by a woman called Mina Wolf, who is actually an ancient Atlantean priestess, and she's tapping into all the ruins of Atlantis to find ancient artifacts to power the Third Reich. And so they've got lots of interesting weapon technology, and so they're very much into science. But they clash. The two of them clash. She knows that the Black Sun are working to kind of basically end the world, not really to further the Third Reich. So it's lots of interesting challenges there, and it's the 2D20 system that we used in Star Trek and Dishonored and Conan and Mutant Chronicles. So that's and it's it's slightly tweaked version for World War II, and it's got a great character creation life path system. Lets you create some really interesting characters, and interestingly, the way we've done it is the player's guide is actually the core rulebook. So if you buy the player's guide, every player can get the player's guide, which has got all the character creation in it and the full core rules. And then the Games Master's Guide, which is bigger, has all the juicy setting material. So and the stats for the enemies and the secret plots and the cool gear, the secrets of the factions and things like that. So we've kind of broken it up like that. And then there's some beautiful dice, Black Sun dice, and some blue crystal dice if you want as well. Games Master screen, and then we've got a whole series of adventure releases through the year where we're completely rebuilding the Shadows of Atlantis campaign from the ground up, which was one of our big epic campaigns. And that's going to tie in with another big IP we're launching, which is another story set within the Achtung Cthulhu, not Achtung Cthulhu universe. Let me backtrack. Achtung Cthulhu is set in a universe we called Against the Gods Themselves, which is tied in with our Atlantean priestess, and it's a vengeance story against the mythos gods, and it goes back in time and forward in time, and we're going to be launching lots of other worlds to play in this universe. Okay.
I was about to say, last time we talked, you said that with the 2D20 version, it gets a little bit pulpier, it gets a bit bigger, less just like history, and then added on more full-on monsters and mythos.
That's
that sounds like even more than just monsters and mythos.
Oh yeah, there is. And also, we thought, well, we don't need to put as much history in because that's very easy to find. It's a Wikipedia page, one click away, and it's also fascinating. Once you start digging into the history, you'll find out all sorts of great ideas. So we thought, well, let's not have so much history. Let's really focus on what is different about our secret war. The secret war is the fun stuff people want to play. They want to know more about the mysterious plots and what's going on behind the scenes. So we've really focused on that, and of course, adding in the 2D20 rule system. And we are looking at a Call of Cthulhu 7th edition version of this whole new book series as well, but obviously much later in the year.
Okay. So you started out with, it was Call of Cthulhu 5. and
Six.
six, and
Yeah.
Savage Worlds for the first version of
Yes.
Achtung Cthulhu, now 2D20, and maybe then going back to Cthulhu.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And the first one, it was dual statted. So we had Savage Worlds and Call of Cthulhu 6th edition stats, which was a nightmare.
Yes.
Because it bloats the size of the book. And then you can't publish one without the stats for the other. So you're waiting for someone to do the conversion. So it took us forever to get those books out. And so we thought, okay, let's just focus on the one, and then we'll go and do the other.
I get it.
Yeah, it should be easy.
Okay. The questions are the you can start to order it on next Tuesday, but then the question in the chat is, when will we actually get it then?
So on Tuesday, you'll get the complete player's guide in PDF. It's ready to go. So if you pre-order, and there's various bundles, there's a player's bundle, a games master bundle. So you'll get the player's guide, so you can start creating characters. You've got the complete rules, and I believe there is there's a quick start adventure already that's free. So you can download the quick start adventure for free now, which is a great fun mission to a little village in France with mysterious goings on. And then the Games Master's Guide will get dropped in as soon as it's complete. It's probably, I think it's about 6 to 8 weeks away, but it's in layout at the moment. They've just got to finish some artwork and final layouts. And then I believe all the print books and the dice, etc., are shipping in the summer because we have to wait for the dice to come from China, and it's chaos with logistics coming out of China because of COVID. They have a shortage of steel containers. So,
okay.
Yeah, you think
That's
there's enough containers, but all the containers are stuck in ports because lots of companies are shut down. So there's ports full of containers with all their stuff in it. And everyone's going, whose is this container? It's full of shoes, or it's full of ducks, plastic bath ducks, or whatever. It's a mess. But anyway, it means there's either no containers or they cost 3 times as much, which is, if you know your logistics, just forget it.
Yeah.
Expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So okay. Fingers crossed that they make it across the ocean.
That was a very long-winded way of saying they're coming in the summer, but you get the PDF of the player's guide now.
Instantly. Okay.
Yeah, and we've got lots of adventures in PDF coming over the next few months as well. So we'll keep you busy.
Okay. Well, we had half an hour and it's breezed past in like 5 minutes. At least that's what it feels like. What I'm taking away is keep your eyes open for the campaign starting for the Skyrim board game.
Yes.
Then New Achtung Cthulhu will be in pre-order on Tuesday, and you can play right away if you get the PDF. And
we've actually got Fallout 2D20 pre-order is at the end of the month, which you will also get, I believe, a preview or even the whole book. So that's the Fallout role-playing game in 2D20. So it's a busy month.
Okay. Well, to be honest, Modiphius always seems very busy because you put out so many games.
Yes.
So, okay. Thank you so much for being here and doing this kind of force march through all the different games.
It's my pleasure.
And have a great day. Have a great weekend, Chris. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. See you.
Bye. Let's talk a little bit about Nightfall games. Who are you and what do you do?
So Nightfall has been in existence since the early 90s, so about 92, 93. And it started with a group of people, not including me, in Scotland, who created a role-playing game. The group was led by a chap called Dave Alsop. And Dave and the rest of the group were living in Glasgow, which was quite deprived at the time, and in Thatcher, Britain, which a lot of people had a lot of problems with Margaret Thatcher's government at the time. Dave and the rest of the group were young 20-somethings or late teens, and they had no jobs. They all lived in the same flat together, and they created a role-playing game. And that role-playing game was called Slay Industries, and it's a dark dystopian black humour type of setting, which has had a cult following ever since. When it first came into existence, it was bought by a company you might have heard of called Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah, might have heard of them.
Might have heard of them.
Yeah, I think they're doing quite well.
Yeah. They had this funny little card game, and they had lots of money to spend, so they bought Nightfall Games, and basically they were doing role-playing games alongside Magic and various other card games that they had at the time as well. And then eventually, about 2 or 3 years later, they decided that they didn't want to do role-playing games anymore because there was no money in it. And so they stopped doing role-playing games, and Slay Industries came back to the team that were Nightfall at the time. And they continued to do things and worked with a company called Hogshead Publishing, which also had Star Wars at the time, I think it was. Or maybe it was a Warhammer RPG. But anyway, they did all that, and that came and went, and basically Slayers picked up a very strong and passionate fan base, both here in the UK, but in the US and in Scandinavia especially. There's also fans in Germany, pretty much everywhere you can imagine. There's people that are really into Slay, but it's almost like everybody's dark little secret. It's not a mainstream game. It's not one that it's not as mainstream as, say, Dungeons and Dragons or anything like that, or even Cyberpunk. But those people that like it really like it. And last year, I think it was, we brought out second edition via Kickstarter, and that did a lot better than we could have hoped for. And the game is now back. And last year, or earlier this year, I sent a load of copies across to Patrick as well. So Germany now has it in abundance, if it wants it or not.
Yeah, we will talk about Sly, and we will talk also about Terminator, because looking at the chat, there's people who are very interested in what's going on there. But also, just very quickly, and Ulrich, I think that Patrick says they're not here yet. They're still in transit.
They're on their way. Brexit.
Yes, that's the thing I'd like to talk about just real quick, because I think you working with Ulrich Verlag is also because of Brexit, because you need new ways to reach the continent.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a number of strings to my bow, a phrase we use over here a little bit, where I've got a number of different things going on. So Nightfall is one of them, and one of the most important ones. But I also have another company that makes board games, and more recently we set up a company called GMS Logistics, which is there to help fulfill Kickstarters and also distribute in the UK for people, which is great because we can take people's games from Europe and America and help them get them out in the UK, because not only has Brexit been bad for us sending things out, but it's also been bad for people getting things in. So, for example, we're now working with Patrick's company to help us distribute within Europe, because it's harder for us to get things from the UK to Europe than it is for us to send a whole pallet and get somebody like Patrick's company to actually distribute for us or work with us. It's not even distribution; it's more be our agent. It's be us in that country. So. Hopefully, it's very early doors, and obviously Patrick's yet to get the product from us. But hopefully, this is the beginning of a big and strong relationship between the two companies, where we can get things to Europe via Patrick, and hopefully in time, people, including Patrick's company, will be able to get stuff into UK easier and less painfully than it is at the moment. Obviously, Brexit is only 8-9 weeks in now, so it's still a mess. And also, COVID has really has not made it easy for us either. But I think the dust will settle as far as the Brexit problems. But it's always better, and it's always good to have partnerships with people that can react quickly. And obviously, if we sell something or 1 second.
I can still hear you, but
somebody's trying to ring me on my phone, so I apologize for that.
Okay.
So basically, it's a really good thing, because it means that we can work in Europe much quicker and better. Hopefully, in time, we can return the favour. but we also have the same thing going on in America as well, because I don't know if the people listening to the talk are interested. One second, it's doing it again.
You being called.
Yeah, I'm going to try and message the person and tell them to leave me alone while we talk. But basically, the rules have changed for VAT or VAT here in the UK, so that if a company wants to bring something into the UK, if they make a sale that's worth £135 or more, they have to register for VAT in England or in Britain, and they have to be registered from that point forward and do tax returns every 3 months. So that's a massive turn-off for a lot of small companies. Imagine I bought something from you now for £137 worth of stuff. Maybe that's equivalent of about 150 euros in the exchange rate now. From that point forward, you would have to be VAT registered in the UK, which is a nightmare.
And I have to stay registered.
Yeah, if you were a company, I mean, if it's an individual, it's slightly different. But
okay,
yeah,
I was looking around. I'm usually not selling things, but you could have an extra.
Oh, there you go. So if I bought that off you and you were a company, you then have to be permanently resident from that point onwards. So not good. I'm just going to send this guy a message. So on a meeting, we'll call later. Hopefully he'll leave me alone now. But yes, so that's another thing that we can do as well. So we've got that aspect. So, if a company wants to sell in the UK and needs help doing so, that's where my company can help there as well. So it's good. It's really good.
Okay, then let's talk about the books that are almost here, who will be in Germany soonish. Once the lorry or however it gets here has crossed the channel. Yeah. What is Sly Industries? So, what do you play? What kind of world is this?
So it's set in an alternative universe where there's this big company at the very top of that runs everything. So, if you imagine the big companies in our world right now, Microsoft, who else? McDonald's, Starbucks, all of those companies are massive, big companies. Amazon's another good example. And they have like the majority of the market share in what they do, but they also, they're therefore better at it and they're quicker at it just for all of these reasons. Now, take that concept and make it so that Starbucks does everything. It doesn't just do coffee and tea. It does restaurants. It does distribution. It makes donuts. It's got fast food restaurants. It makes your cars. It makes your guns. It makes your armor. It makes your clothes. It makes everything you can imagine. And if you, as a individual, decided to try and make, for example, some donuts and sell them, you would be going against the company, and there would be people it's their job to work as an operative, almost like a SWAT team or a kill team that will go in and deal with anything that's bad for the company. And that's what the squad of players play as. So you're an operative or a squad of operatives, and your job can be anything from cleaning the sewers all the way up to taking out some really bad guy that's threatening the world, fighting the opposition, all sorts of different things. So
trying to sell donuts.
Yeah, exactly. So it's really difficult and very hard to deal with. So it's really I'm not explaining this as good as I should do, but basically you are a kill team or an investigation team. So say, for example, somebody's found dead, your job would be to find out why they've died. If somebody has, if a bomb's gone off somewhere, it's your job to do that. The world is set in this massive planet called Mort that's got all sorts of different parts to it. But on that planet of Mort is the capital city, which is, the size of probably Austria, as an example. And it's on multi-layers, and most of the action happens there, but that's not limited to where it is. You could also be going to the outskirts, which are called the cannibal sectors, where it's lawless, it's dangerous. There's cannibals, there's all sorts of nasties and everything else. So there's so much to do, but it's also the genre that it's in is called, we call it splatterpunk. So if you imagine diesel punk is basically diesel or fuel is really easy to come by. Steampunk is all about, water and the resource that makes steam, so coal, etc. And in cyberpunk, obviously, it's cybernetics. These are the things that they almost have no value because they are omnipresent. They're always there. Everybody can get access to them. In this, it's called splatterpunk, and basically that's because life is the resource that no one cares about. Okay. So people spend their time. They get one of the free things that Slay gives them is a television. So they live in a horrible flat with nothing but a dirty old sofa that they sleep on, they eat on, they do everything you can imagine on, apart from maybe using the toilet. But their life is that sofa and watching the telly. And the best thing that they like to watch on telly is operatives, which are what the players are, killing things, doing things, or being killed. That makes great telly, and that's what everybody wants to watch. So the players can become famous and infamous by doing cool things on telly. And one of the ways that the television makes it more interesting is that there's a massive tax on bullets, a bullet tax. So people are discouraged from using guns, but encouraged to use blades and close combat weapons, because close combat is much more interesting than watching someone get shot from 100 meters or so.
Yeah. So you are a killer squad for an all-encompassing company and also characters in a reality TV show.
Yeah, and this exactly it. And on top of that, you could be anything. So you could be a human, which we all sort of know what they are. You could also be what's called an ebonite, which are, if you imagine, the best analogy I can give you is imagine a dark elf that's magical, but they're not bad, if that makes sense. So they're gothic, they're goth looking, they're punk looking. There's two different races. There's the Ebons and the Ebans, or brainwasters as they used to be called. You then have this race which is, again, hard to describe, but imagine a lizard crossed with a cat, but humanoid.
Okay. Is it crossed in a cute way or in a horrific, terrible way?
It's not cute, but I wouldn't say it's horrific either. They look like they should. They look as they should do in a way. They're not really scary. I'll see if I can find a picture for you while we're on the message. But then you've got these things that are called Shakhtar, which are basically big lizard dragon type creatures, and they are quite horrific. And you have something called Stormers as well. So there is an awful lot of really interesting creatures that you can play in this game, and lots of different enemies, both real and there's a Wraithen, for example. Sorry, there's a Shakhtar.
Oh yeah,
there's the Wraithen. There's the Wraithen we were talking about before. Lizard cat type cross thing, but you're not playing. You're not playing a cat. Yeah, you're not playing a cat. You're not playing a lizard. You're playing sort of like a mixture between the two. You then have these things called frothers, which are imagine a Scottish Highlander in armour who's addicted to drugs and fighting. That's a frother.
It's scary.
Yeah, but that's one of the playable characters. And then the other thing that they have, which is really quite cool, is what's called a Stormer. And these are sort of biogenetically engineered super soldiers. But they don't look human. They look pretty horrific. They look like a skinned horse with its jaws on show, and that's a Stormer. So you've got, but they're not scary. They're actually a good guy character. In fact, they're more good than, say, for example, the humans or any of the others could be. So
okay, so yeah, it's not their fault. They look like a skinned horse.
That's it. And the thing is you've got the horrific things, but then if you think about if something's horrific and scary looking and horror-esque, imagine what that thinks is scary, and that is pretty much what Slay's about. Mm. So what scares a Stormer that looks like that? That's what this game's about. Yes,
probably a Highlander on drugs looking for
quite
a fight.
Possibly, yeah.
That might scare Stormer.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. It sounds like a whole season of Black Mirror rolled into one, and then
and this is the
shot
amazing
into
thing
space.
is all these things that we've talked as tropes for this game. You could things like Judge Dredd are talked about, Blade Runner, what else? As you say, Black Mirror, a lot of sort of like scary horror type movies. They've all come out long after this was concepted. So this game and the ideas within it were ahead of their time almost. And so if somebody comes along today and looks at it, they go, oh, well, they got that idea from X, or they got that idea from Y. Well, X and Y never existed when this game came out. And that's what's another thing that's cool about it.
Yeah. I can imagine that people working on Judge Dredd or the team of Black Mirror know Slayer Industries.
Yeah,
I
you're
wouldn't be
correct.
surprised.
Well, certainly, as far as Judge Dredd's concerned, we actually have one of the artists is prominent in both Slay and in the Judge Dredd. So a chap called Clint Langley, his first job as an artist was working on the Slay Industries book. And then he's gone on to big success working both on Judge Dredd, Magic Cards, on Games Workshop. So he's a big artist. And this is another thing. We've got a lot of artists that have gone on to quite amazing things. So Dave Alsop, the guy that created it, magic artist, he's one of the main artists for the computer game Hearthstone, if you know that.
Yeah.
And he's also done art for lots of other projects as well, like D&D, Pathfinder, all of these sort of things as well. So yeah, it's got a good caliber, shall we say, a good amount of people that have done some amazing things since as well.
Yes. What is, since you've kind of, I guess, reworked it for the new version, what were things you looked at and things that changed from a 90s game to a 2020s game?
Really good question. So we have obviously the books back in the 90s, printing was all about black and white, and very few internal pieces would have been colour, and if they were a special page that cost a lot more. Whereas nowadays it's no more expensive or costly to print in black and white or colour. So we've gone full colour. So the artwork is completely different. Well, not different. It's full colour rather than black and white line pieces. And both of them have a place, and both of them are very popular with people. And some people love black and white, and other people love the colour. But having an artist of the calibre of Dave Alsop in charge of this project, he wants to do the best art that he can do, because this is his baby, this is his creation, and therefore the art that we've got is so much more improved. We've then, back in the day when we were talking about how a lot of things have come since Slay that look like Slay copied them, but actually Slay had it first, sort of thing.
If anything,
yeah, there was a few things that had been copied previously. So, for example, the Shaptar, which were the big lizard guys that I showed you, the big sort of dragon guys, they originally looked a lot more like a predator from the Predator movies. So we've changed them to make them more realistic. We brought in new species and new character types. So, for example, there's a new species that's called a neophron, which is basically a bird-like diplomat. So it looks like it's got an eagle's head almost, and then it's got a human-esque body, but very thin and fragile. And they're a new character class which enable a different type of play. And they've proven very popular with people that maybe wouldn't have played Slay in the past. So certain groups of society that like that sort of play more so. What else? The timeline. So this game has got a timeline. So when it first came out, it was set at a certain point, and now we move the timeline forward with every book that comes. And we've done that with this second edition. So it's not a rehash of what was there before. It moves things forward. So it jumps forward 2 or 3 years from the book that came out prior to it. And then, again, the same, we've made sure we bring in new artists as well. So we've got some really good new artists that I suspect are the sort of ones that will end up working for big companies in the future, if not for us in the future as well. So yeah, it's been really good. We've developed forward, and the team changed as well. So for the last sort of 10 years or so, it's just been Dave and Jared, who is the two guys that created it between them. And then 3 years ago, I joined the team, and the three of us are now creating Stay going forward with Dave at the helm, which is really nice.
Okay. We've had some people in chat saying, okay, look at the art. I need that Highlander. But let's change track a little bit and talk about what's coming up next for Nightfall Games, because you have the rights to do Terminator role-playing
We
game.
do.
Now,
Yes.
there's lots of questions that immediately come to mind. What part of the canon is it going to be, and what are you actually going to play, in which time set, things like that. So
Brilliant. Yep.
when we're talking about a Terminator game, Terminator 1, 2, 3, whatever happened later that completely
Yes.
messed up the timeline, where are we?
So our license at the moment centres on the first film only, so The Terminator, and all Black Horse comics that come with it. So, for example, this is a comic that's recently been published, and you can see there that it says The Terminator. It doesn't say The Terminator 2, it doesn't say Salvation, whatever else. So this comic is part of our canon. If it had said Salvation, we wouldn't be using it, or can't use it. So that's what we've got. So we've got The Terminator, and we've got approximately 15 or so comic graphic novels, whatever you want to call them. So that gives us a massive scope. Now, what it doesn't give us, which is probably key things that we should point out, it doesn't give us the T1000s. So it doesn't give us the metallic one that you see in Terminator 2. It doesn't give us Terminators on the good guy side, because that all comes later. It doesn't give us the TX, I think, from Terminator 3, and it doesn't give us some of the things you see in some of the other movies. Now, what's interesting is some of the later movies take ideas from the comic books. So, for example, Terminator Salvation, the main guy is a human that's been enhanced, and his skeleton and everything else has been replaced. That's in one of the comic books. So in theory, we have the ability to do that.
But not because it was in the movie, but because it was in the source material you're working
That's
with.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we have the ability to do is actually create ourselves for the Terminator game. So, for example, if we want to create a new Terminator, for example, we want to create, I don't know, think of something, a small human that's ambiguous, somebody that's not obviously going to be a Terminator. That would be something we could do if we wanted created a creature Terminator, or a new gun or something like that. We can do that if it's appropriate and it's needed. So, for example, anyone that's looked at the artwork that we've released so far, we've got a handgun which looks similar to the main gun that they all hold in the Future War. That handgun didn't exist until we created it for this game, but it's fully approved by the license owner rather. So,
Okay. Now, when are we playing then?
you tell me. When would you like to play it?
Okay, I would go for the 80s or for the future.
Cool. So you can do either of them.
Okay.
You can do either of them, but you could also do the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2020s, the 2010s, whatever you want. And the game that we are creating will allow people to play wherever they want, really. If you really wanted to, and you wanted to play, for example, in the time of the Napoleons, you could arguably do that. I don't know how you do it, and that would be down to the DM to work it out, but you could, in this game, you can go wherever you want in time.
Yes, I was laughing because I just saw in my mind Arnold Schwarzenegger waltzing through the Peninsular War and people shooting muskets.
You can imagine it. I
can imagine it. Okay. How do you do that? So there's rules for different for the technology, I guess, for different times.
Well, if you think about the movie, as a Terminator starts, the movie basically states that the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, the T-800 101, is a new creation, and Carl Reese sort of says we've never seen one like this before. So that Terminator is sent back to the time point that it is. But also in the comic books, or in the graphic novels, as I should call them, a guy sent back to the 60s by mistake. Humans are sent back to the 60s by mistake. There's also, in some of these books that we're looking at now, like the one I've just shown you, this goes to arguably the 2000s. So you can pretty much, the time machine isn't set that you have to go back to 1984 and that's the only time point you can go to. You can, even in the movie, the story says that you could go anywhere. It equally says that the Arnold, or T-800 101, is the first of its kind. So in theory, moving forward from that point in the Terminator movie, there's the ability for variant Terminators. And again, in the graphic novels, you see variant Terminators all over the place. And the reason for that is, and this is another thing that's important for this, is for people to use the Arnold's likeness, they have to pay Arnold a lot of money. And most projects like what we're doing, and even the graphic novels, cannot afford Arnold's face. So there's ways around that. For example, you just only show a T-800 with no skin on it, or you create variants. And even in the movie, there's another Terminator. So it's questionable whether it's a T-700 or it's a variant T-800. But there's another Terminator that was played by Arnold's real-life best friend, an Italian fellow whose name I can't remember. But he's the one that...
he died a few years ago.
The actor died, yes. But as far as the canon's concerned, what we're allowed to do, that opens up the door. So even though in future movies we are given the impression that Arnold is pretty much the only T-800 that exists, the comic books say otherwise. Okay. If that makes sense. And that means that we can have lady Terminators, we can have Terminators of different ethnicity, we can have Terminators of different sizes and shapes. So we can do what we want within the IP, as long as I very much believe that when you've got an IP, you must keep what you create central to it. So we're never going to create, for example, I don't know, I can't even think of an example, but whatever we create, we're going to make sure that it fits and it makes perfect sense to be within that IP.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Good thing is we don't have to pay Arnold Schwarzenegger just because we imagine his face.
Well, that's right. And
when we're playing at our table.
I would absolutely love to have his image in this product, and I think it would be awesome if we did. But quite simply, it's just not going to be viable unless this game goes supernova, and then, maybe Arnold sees it and says, you know what, this is so good, I'm going to let you use my face for a lot less money. But I assume we won't. And given that, we're going to do our best to make the best product within the restrictions that we have. Okay.
The very, very last stretch goal, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about when you can use time travel to go anywhere. If you play a story that's longer than just the Terminator, than just one incident you're playing, how do you deal with time travel? So
it's a good question. So what we have is, say you're a squad of characters. So in the quick start, you're a squad of five individuals that are sent. So for those people that are listening, there is a quick start version of this game that you can download for free from DriveThruRPG. You just need to type in the Terminator RPG and it should come up. And in that is a taster of the game with a small mission to play that is basically a 1 or 2 session mission as far as a role-play game is concerned. So anyway, in that, we've got a squad of up to 7 players, 7 playable characters, and they're a squad from the future, and their objective in that mission is to get to the chopper, but not the chopper, get to the time machine. and then that's where that ends. So arguably, the next session that your GM or your director of the game comes along with could be set in 1984, rescuing and sort of doing your own version of the movie, or it could be going to the 2000s and doing your version of one of the graphic novels, or it can be going anywhere else at any other time. It could even be going a year back, so you're still in the future war, for example, and sort of trying to take out Cyberdyne systems or capture a T800 so you can reprogram it to send it back to protect your people. It could be that you are you get sent too far back. So, for example, you might get sent back to the 1980s, but you actually need to be there in 84. So you've got 4 years to get yourself in situ. What are you going to do for those 4 years? And, is there going to be other Terminators that are sent back, not necessarily T800s, but maybe things that come after the T800 from even further into the future that come back and you've got to deal with? It's all, I don't know if you know Doctor Who very well, but it's all timey-wimey. It's all timey-wimey. And you can do what you want. Now, the big question, and I think this is one that we haven't yet come to an answer for, is if your group, say you and I are playing and we've got a couple of other people, we go back to 1984 and we complete our mission, what happens then?
What happens when we go back? Yes.
Can we jump to somewhere else? Do we allow that within this game because that's what the game's about? Or do we say, no, you can't move from 1984. You've got to live the rest of your lives in the game and something else comes along? And that's a question that's for us as the game designers, recognising the IP, and it's also for the game director, the person, the GM, for want of a better term, what they want to do. So, is the team going to be able to create a time machine to jump forward again, or even jump further back? And they're all things that can be done. And the other important thing, I think, is that it's not just about the T800. There's so much more that can be done with this. Again, using all the stuff that's in the comic books, there's all sorts of different types of robots to be coming up against. There's all different threats within Cyberdyne, the local police forces, the local gangs. You think about the beginning of the movie, he comes up against gangers who he takes their clothes from. All of that sort of stuff is things that the players may well come up against as well. As a gang of 4 or 5 people that have never been to 1984, what's going to happen when you come up against a gang of people that are trying to kill you and all you've got to show for it is your body because you haven't even got your new clothes yet? How do you deal with that? Imagine I sent you back to 1960s from here. You've got an impression of what it's going to be like, but you might be completely wrong.
It's going to be reality.
Yeah, and all that sort of stuff's going to be interesting. And when you take into account that these characters have been sent from a future war that's so different to what the 1980s is, or the 90s, or the noughties, or whatever, there's an awful lot to be played with here.
Okay, so we are, in every case, we're going to play people from the future war. We're going to be sent back time, or can we play like the locals?
Well, that's it. So imagine you're playing a game and somebody dies. Your character doesn't make it because they do something foolish, or the Terminator finds them, or who knows what happens, to get caught by the police and put in prison, for example, and we haven't got around to breaking you out, or we decide not to. Then there's no reason why a character can't be brought from the future to replace them, or somebody that's co-current with the game. So, for example, imagine, again, in the first movie, think about the 2 police officers that help her out before they get killed. Yeah. But those 2 guys could be playable characters. So you could have, if you lose your tech guy from the future, you then replace them with a police officer in the present. Or it could be somebody that's been sent too far back, and therefore they come along as well. So there's also, again, all sorts of things that you and the player and the games director can do to make this cool.
Okay. Now let's talk a bit about when this is going to be on Kickstarter and what you are aiming for, and is it Europe continental friendly, things like that?
Yeah. So
when can we get the game?
Yeah, we're hoping, although it's not definite because we need a couple of things to fall into place beforehand, but we're hoping to launch the Kickstarter next Thursday. Okay. Big news. I haven't told anybody else that. So that's the plan.
Fingers crossed. Everything goes well.
I've just received the video for it, and we've been blown away by what the guy's done with it, and that's been approved. So that's going to probably get published in the next 24 to 48 hours. My timeline is I want to get this game completed fairly quickly. And actually, there's a lot of it that's already been done. So all the rules are written, or the majority of the rules are written. The main body of the text is also in process and will hopefully be written before the Kickstarter's finished. So in theory, we'll have whatever we unlock during the Kickstarter and any additional stuff to do, including quite a lot of artwork. But we've got a team of artists, so we've got about 5 or 6 different artists, so we should be able to get the work divided between them quite easily. We've got the front cover commissioned already. We've got an alternate cover that's close to being done. We've got a third alternate cover that's very close to being done. The GM screen artwork has been commissioned but yet to be started. So I'm hoping, although this is a big hope rather than a promise, that we will be in a position to send it to print around June time. Mm-hmm. Printing takes between 6 and 8 weeks normally. So say, even if we said 3 months, June, July, August, September, hopefully we can get it out in September. But again, no promises there. That's just my hope for the moment.
Yeah. And also rests on things getting better worldwide.
Well, that's right. I mean, obviously COVID hopefully won't affect it, because at least in the UK, a lot of people are getting vaccinated and we seem to be on top of it. But then again, we said that before the third lockdown and before the second lockdown. So who knows? Mm-hmm. And then obviously it depends on where it is in other countries. I don't know quite the status of there in Germany, whether you've got vaccines and things like that happening. Or...
Yes. Let's not talk about how inefficient we are proving at distributing the vaccine. Yeah,
well, I know a friend of mine who is 49 is just about to get his vaccine, his first dose. So that means, and they're doing it from top down. So he's in the 45 to 50 bracket. So he's about to get it. And then obviously I'll go to the next bracket below, et cetera, et cetera. So at the moment, we're looking like, as a country, everybody will have had at least the first injection by, I think they're saying, beginning of July. So let's see.
I envy you, but I have no idea.
I mean,
whenever
that is one thing that the UK government seems to have done quite well, is we seem to have got on top of that quicker than our European compatriots. So
yes, you bought as much as you could get as fast as you could.
Yeah,
but let's talk about.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Kickstarter. You were talking about like a Game Master screen and things like that. Are they planned anyways, or are those things that are going to be stretch goals?
So the GM screen is so the rule book itself is, at the moment, it's going to be 196 pages long. It will be American letter size books, so the same size as most books that are in the market. So I know a lot of people over there know Modiphius products and Free League products and all of those. It's the industry standard shape for European books. It's the industry standard for American books, but it's also coming over here. I know, for example, that some of the books that Patrick's company has produced have been A4 size, but we're doing
German standard.
German standard, yeah.
I don't know why, but we've got one.
Do you know what? It's funny because they should be the British standard as well, but everybody here in the UK, all the companies seem to use American for some reason or another. I don't know why. But probably
to sell to the Americans.
Yeah, probably.
Because they're not good with things they don't know. So
that's true. So yeah, that's probably it. So it's going to be American letter size. It's obviously in English. We are hoping that we will be able to work with very good companies. I don't know if you know any in Germany, but we'd like to work with some very good companies in translating it if they're interested. So any suggestions there? I think there's a guy called Patrick that's got a really good company.
Yeah. He's got a pretty good publishing house. But
so hopefully,
they know this stuff.
Hopefully we'll be doing that down the line. But as far as the Kickstarter is concerned, 196-page book to start off with. We want to make it bigger and better. A GM screen, which will use art that's already part of it, but we're hoping to commission a new art, and that's going to be there from the beginning. We've also got a really nice dice tray that's got a neoprene dice tray that you can sort of clip on the corners, and it's a travel one, for want of a better term. Some really nice dice, and then we've also got some nice plans for other things as well as we progress.
Okay, and we will have to wait until the Kickstarter to find out
and obviously
with those.
They'll also be dependent on us meeting certain targets, because this is, as the Americans would say, this is not my first rodeo as far as doing a Kickstarter is concerned, and I have learnt the hard way that promising too much, especially from the beginning, is very, very bad for your health and the health of your company. So what we're going to do is to start small. If we hit the target, then we start bringing in new things. And hopefully the more we make on the Kickstarter, the more that we can not only add to what people get in effect for free for their pledges, but also the other things that they can buy, the swag, as I would call it, the cool stuff, the nice stuff, the Kickstarter exclusive stuff. But again, the idea with this project is that it's not a one-hit wonder. We don't want to just sort of, here's everything, you know, we don't want to produce 20 books and then spend 10 years doing it. We want to get one book out, do it really well and really time effectively, and then potentially, if it's successful, then bring out expansions or variant books that widen it. So that's the intention. So we're hoping to really do a lot of good with this game and make it something that people can enjoy beyond a one-hit wonder. Is that then, where are you planning to go then? More like adventure modules? Because I'm thinking about how can you... Yeah. Some of this is not certain because it all depends on what we can get with licenses. But I would like to look at getting other movies within the franchise. So one of the other Terminator movies and bringing in what's from that to it. Now, obviously, some of the movies have more RPG potential than others, and some of the movies are, shall we say, better than others with regards to how successful or how good they were. So we probably won't go for all 6 movies over time, but what we'll hopefully do is look at getting 1 or 2 of the other good movies and making them into role-playing games, add-ons, sort of like companion books to the main one. So this is going to be the main book. We'll then add things to it as time progresses, if there's a want for it. Okay. There will be quite some discussion which of the movies are the good ones. Yeah, and it's really interesting because, I mean, it's the same with lots of these movies now that, you know, Aliens is another good example. Predator is another good example. And I always see these as the 3 big ones, aren't they? The Aliens, Predator and Terminator are the ones that have come from the same background as in the 1980s. They both do the same. They all do the similar thing. They all have far too many movies. Some have been successful, some have been less so. And, you know, I pretty much enjoy every single movie that any of them has produced. But some of them are what I would call popcorn movies. They're not ones that you need to think about, and they're just glorified horror movies in some cases, whereas others are just absolutely amazing. And where your point of view falls is partly dependent on how you feel about the movies that when they came out, how old you were when they came out. You know, you have it with like Star Wars is another great example. Episode 4, 5, and 6 for me are amazing. Less keen on the newer ones, even less keen on the original trilogy. And you know what? I would never ever watch episode 1 again because I can't stand it. But that's because it was all about when it came out. And I think, you know, Dark Fate is not it's not necessarily a terrible movie. It just didn't do anything particularly great for the franchise, if that makes sense. If it had been a movie, it's there. It's there, yeah. Yes, exactly. It exists. It adds content. It's probably like a lot of the graphic novels, you know. The movies at sort of 9 or 10 out of 10. Where do these other things fit? And if you say that something that's 3 or less is something you don't want to watch or read, then I don't think many of them fall into that bracket for me. Okay. But they probably do for a lot of other people. Well, you know, Terminator role-playing game Alien has been done by Free League and well, I think. So yes. Someone needs to look at the Predator, but maybe. Yeah, but the Predator, I can get where. So for me, the Predator is one that I think is going to really struggle to become a good movie, good role-playing game, because it really is about one baddie. You know, the Terminator has been expanded to other things, and yes, you get predator dogs and you get juveniles and you get human. There is things you can do with the Predator, but the long and short of it is it's slightly different. There's no Cyberdyne systems. There's no there's no real setting differences. It's hard. I think the Predator would, if Free League got the Predator and they were allowed to combine it with the Terminator, with the Alien franchise RPG, that could be really interesting. But it's almost a source book in my view. But then again, who knows what Free League are going to do? They've done pretty well recently with their most recent product, so who knows?
I guess the Alien game can stand alone without any Predator in it. But we'll see.
Exactly.
Good. There was a question about you working with Uhrwerk, where people should order their books now if they're interested in Sly Industries, if they should order with Patrick at Uhrwerk, or if they should order with you and Uhrwerk is just going to fulfillment. How's it going?
Yeah, so the intention is that Uhrwerk will basically have all of our products on the shop, so not just Slay, but also the Devil's Run board game and role-playing game. What else? Chivalry and Sorcery, and potentially others in time as well. And the Slay miniatures game too. And he will have them in his stock and you can order from him. Mm-hmm. And if you do so, then happy days. He will fulfill your order. He will work as an agent. So he will have some profit from it and we will have some profit from it. And that's one option, like any other shop, really. Okay. Whereas if you buy from us, what we will probably do is send a message to Uhrwerk and say, can you please fulfill this order for us? And he will then do that. That's the intention. But equally, if he doesn't have that stock in place and we do, then we would do it from the UK. And it would be sent duty paid. So there would be no paperwork or anything for you guys to do as well. So it's really up to the customer what they want to do. And you know, as they say, customer knows best. So, you know, but obviously,
you've got to say that.
Yeah, our intention was to make getting these products easier. And, you know, Slay Industries, as I say, Germany doesn't seem to know Slay Industries as well as it should do, given how good Slay Industries is and how popular role-playing games are in Germany. You guys need to pick this game up and you need to buy it and you need to play it. And then you need to tell Patrick to turn it into a German version so that you can have it in German as well.
Okay, we'll take a look at it. We have 10 minutes left. And as you mentioned, there's a few more things that you do. Devil's Run, weird, crazy automobiles. Yeah,
I mean, that's close to my heart because I created that myself. So up until about 2013, I was a salesman working for a big international company called Thermo Fisher Scientific, selling products into the biological industry. But I've always been a geek. I've always liked geeky things. And I started working with a company called Prodos Games, which some people may have heard of, making a game called Warzone Resurrection, which is a miniatures game. And I left that company, interestingly, just as they acquired the license for Alien versus Predator as a board game. And, miniatures game, I think it was. But anyway, I then created my own idea, and it was just as Mad Max had come out, or was about to come out, the new movie of Mad Max.
Fury Road.
Fury Road, that's right. And I was... Before Mad Max, the announcement of Fury Road coming out got me really excited about playing a car battle game. And I bought what was it called? The one that Games Workshop did. I can't remember what it's called now. But anyway, I bought that one. I looked at it. I was like, I can't work out these rules. These are just too complicated for me. And then I bought one called Thunder Road, which was a kid's game. And that was really cool, but it was too simple. It was like, roll a dice, yeah, you're dead. Roll a dice, yeah, you win. That sort of thing. So I started to create my own little game here, and that's what it became. So hopefully it sits somewhere between the two of these games. And there's things like Car Wars, and then more recently there's been other games that have done really well as well. And again, I can't think of the names of them. But anyway, so I did that, and then I then created these factions. So I had what I called the Law Haulage Company and the Halls Angels, and these were the two that were battling in the first game. And it was all around San Francisco because I'd just come back from holiday from there. I'd been there. I was really lucky to be there for a month, and San Francisco is awesome, but it's got great roads to drive around, and American cars are quite cool. Let's be honest, if you like that sort of thing. So I had this two thing, and then I started to sort of like to flip it on its head. So the Law Haulage Company, they weren't the law, they weren't the police. They were a bloke called Richard Law who set up his own company, and they were actually the bad guys. And the Halls Angels that looked like Hell's Angels were actually almost the good guys, but they were all big, fat, beardy men with, you know, dreadlocks and big bikes and big sort of gasser cars. And so we did that. And then as the Kickstarter for that grew, somebody said to us, "Oh, I'd really like to have, can you make this model for me as part of it?" So we did that. And this guy wanted a car, a British style car. So we created that, and that became a brand new faction that was called Brit Attack. But because it was set in America, we had to think about how we did that. So it turned out that these were Texans that after the nuclear bomb that had caused the whole world to happen, well, the Texans had sort of decided to go back to their roots, but their roots were not, you know, living off the land in Texas. They went back to a parody of British 1960s. So they're all driving little minis and black cab taxis and all this sort of stuff, and Land Rovers. And then we thought it'd be amusing that they'd get all of the puns wrong. So, for example, the various things, so they spell things wrong, they say things wrong, they all use mock accents and all this sort of stuff. So we created all this just for this little board game. And then one of the guys I was doing it with, who worked for Modifius at the time, he said, "Oh, this would be a really good role-playing game." So I said, "Well, if you think you can do it," because this was before I was part of role-playing, I said, "You give it a go." And he and I developed even more factions. So we've got the Justice, and then you've got the Hunters. And the Hunters are, the idea of the Hunters is that they're these guys that are on television in Brazil, and they film them getting smashed up. So it's a bit like a voyeuristic thing, a bit like Slay, to be honest. But I didn't even know about Slay back then. And so it's all this cool stuff, and it just became really, it's a good fun thing. In a way, it's a little bit Monty Python. It's a bit British people taking the mick out of British people. It's in regards to the Brit Attack, it's a parody of everything. And again, it's been quite a popular thing, and the board game, considering it was made, it started 6 years ago, has still got a cult following, and the role-playing game is beginning to build up a similar thing. So yeah, it's been really good fun. So lots of interesting stuff.
Maybe send some of those also over to Patrick.
He has them actually. Yeah, he's got the role-playing game and the board game. So
very good.
Or he will have.
Hopefully it will work out.
Yeah.
Okay. So, important things, people out there, is the Terminator crowdfunding is going to start next week on a Thursday, hopefully, if everything goes well.
Yeah.
But otherwise it will start soon.
Yeah,
if it's not that Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, basically that's my target. If it misses it, it'll probably be the following Tuesday or the following Thursday or the following Tuesday. So if anyone wants to sort of follow it, they can. There's a link on the Terminator RPG Facebook page. If they want to go there, they can just click a link, or there'll be a link on Kickstarter as well. So.
Okay. And last question, how hard it is working on a Terminator game or something similar to not put any pun of an 80s action flick in there? Because you're just saying, get to the chopper, set off people in chat.
It's been really interesting. So if that was Devil's Run, every single thing you can imagine would be in there. One of the things I always say to my son, so if you guys know the Star Wars movies, you know the bit where Chewie and C-3PO are playing the game, and they always say, "Let the Wookiee win." I always say to my son, because my son's really into games, he likes to teach people, and I say to him, always let the rookie win. So the person you're playing, so they feel, because you think if I teach you a game today, a board game, and I thrash you at it, I beat you, and like, yeah, I'm amazing, and you've never played it, you're not going to want to play that game again.
Yes, indeed. That's a reason for me not having played a certain miniature game for years after someone first introduced me. And
so
totally,
always let the rookie win. And these sort of word puns are definitely right for Devil's Run. They're not right for Slay, because Slay is set in a completely different world, and they're not right for Terminator, because Terminator is all about Terminator. It's not about silly puns from other things. So if you want me to do silly puns, go and buy Devil's Run.
Okay. And I admire the willpower that must be at work there to not do it and at least give a wing somewhere.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mark. I enjoyed this very much.
Me too.
And I guess there's going to be some people who are going to take a look at Slay and also at the Terminator crowdfunding.
Well, thank you. And I hope you all enjoy all those games, because obviously we put a lot of heart and life into it as well. So the teams involved really do their best, and we want to make the best products we can with the IPs we're working on. So, it's not a quick buck for us. It's a quality product is what it's all about.
Yes. When you do a Kickstarter, in the end, people need to see that the money that they gave you and entrusted with you actually led to a good product. And with Slay, you already showed that this works.
Well, that's it. I mean, Slay, again, I know you've probably got to go with the next, but for us, Slay and our other products are all about showing people what we can do, and we have certain companies we look at within the industry and say we want to be like them. We also have some that we look at and we think we don't want to be like them. Yeah. And so our thing for us is amazing art, good quality products, well priced. That's what we're aiming for. And obviously amazing gameplay is also important. So, we want to make sure that people buy Slay, love Slay, buy the next Slay, buy the next Slay, buy the next Slay, and the same thing with Terminator, and the same thing with anything else that we do. And we have got a pipeline of products for Nightfall that people will see over the next couple of years at least.
Okay. Well then, fingers crossed that everything goes well with the Kickstarter. Thank you very much for taking the time.
And you too. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. It was a lovely chat.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So, great to see you. It's been quite some time since we last talked. And I'm very keen to learn what you're working on right now. So everyone, this is John Hodgson. You probably have seen his artwork around somewhere because he's done a lot of it. And it's a very unique and very beautiful, moody style that I personally very much like. And we are going to talk about handiwork games and what you are doing there today, if I'm not completely mistaken. But since I can see already a Beowulf and an A state behind you, that is going to be what you're doing.
Very difficult to do in the camera, yes.
Yeah. Which side am I moving? Okay, let's talk a little bit about handiwork games. What is it that you do? What is kind of publisher is that?
Yeah, so we design and publish games of our own, which is our main kind of business. So Beowulf is our kind of big project at the moment. That's just come out in PDF and is at print now. We also do an awful lot of work for other publishers of varying types, book publishers, video games, some work there, and RPG games too. So we offer like the full spectrum of services to other companies. We made the Creature Collection 5e. We made that for Onyx Path. That was our first big kind of gig, and we're working on all kinds of projects for other companies as well as a team. But I mean, our main focus is our own games. So yeah, Beowulf. We do a couple of card games, the Forest Dragon and Bang and Twang that I made for good or ill with my two boys, and we took to Kickstarter a while back. And also our next big thing is A State, which is a kind of classic British RPG from the early 2000s that we're bringing back to using the Blades in the Dark rules, Forged in the Dark.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, we're a bit different because we've done a lot of 5e stuff. So this is something a little bit different for us. So yeah.
Okay. What do you want to talk about first? A State or Beowulf. Those are the two big things I want to pursue you about. So you want to start with a new one or start with Beowulf?
Let's start with a new one. Why not?
Okay, let's talk about A State.
I've just been chatting with. Yeah.
Okay.
That'd be cool.
Good. So A State, what kind of setting is this? I don't know the game from the 2000s, so I'm completely new to this.
Okay. Yeah.
What can I expect?
So I was just talking about this morning with the authors. We're sort of building our kind of. We're building up to a Kickstarter in a month or two, and we need to kind of get down the description of the game to people who know nothing about it. It's very much based on sort of the last century or so of dystopian science fiction. It's set in a huge crumbling city called The City, which is ruled by a bunch of trusts that are a kind of a slightly different view of kind of corporations, but the name trusts evokes a sort of older age. There's a big influence of kind of Dickens in there as well. Most people live in these enormous kind of crumbling slums.
Oh no, the internet is not with us today. John? I hope he comes back. Okay.
Hello.
Oh yeah.
Back.
The internet left us there for a moment.
Oh no! I hate when that happens.
Okay.
Okay. Where did I get to that you heard?
The moment when when you kind of dropped out was when you said and it's got Dickensian bits because of people living in huge crumbling tenant buildings.
Oh, okay, that's cool. We didn't miss everything.
No, we just missed like 20 seconds, I think.
Yeah. So yeah, it's very much influenced by kind of M. John Harrison. A lot of sort of 70s sci-fi. It's a very unique setting as well, which kind of presents some kind of challenges. There's a bit of the new weird kind of influence there as well. But it's a kind of very well-read setting, if that makes any sense. Okay. It's got a lot of influences. Now, the new thing we're kind of doing that we've really brought to the fore using the Forged in the Dark rules, and this isn't really a mechanical thing so much as it is a setting thing that who you play in the game are kind of people you could broadly talk of as sort of troublemakers or activists within the setting that are working to improve where they live. So you have a corner in the game. It's called your corner, and most of what you do in the game is to improve that, fight off organized crime. You're fighting off the malevolent interests of the trusts, and generally trying to bring people into a better kind of life, which is pretty cool.
Okay, you're playing the good guys.
Yeah, very much so.
At least.
Very much so.
Yeah. Good. Talking about using the Forged in the Dark rules, as far as I know, the Forged in the Dark rules are rather similar to Powered by the Apocalypse, or kind of branching off from those?
Yeah, related. Yeah.
Related.
Yeah.
So how does this work? Because I haven't played Forged in the Dark before. Do you have, similar to PBTR, do you have like books for your characters? These
you have like playbooks for your characters. Okay. Now, in terms of being an expert on the system, we've got Morgan Davey, who you may know from some of his stuff. He works on loads of different indie games, tends to be short form RPGs, and he's the real system expert on this. So I can only give you a bit of an overview of it, and I'll probably get a load of stuff wrong.
That's already very great because I'm rather just looking through a fork right here because I don't know Forged in the Dark yet.
Yeah, it's really good. I can tell you that much. I've really enjoyed what I've played. I'm cautious to say too much in case I get it wrong and completely mislead people. We need more here to give us the setting stuff. What we have done is we've really modified the rules to suit the setting, which you're sort of encouraged to do anyway with the Forged in the Dark games. And we've introduced some different things like different actions, like care is an action now, which things like Blades in the Dark was very much built around being a band of kind of thieves and so on. Well, that doesn't really fit A State. You're not criminals as such. So there's a load of setting specific stuff we've introduced to that. You can actually get, we've got a free PDF for adventure and primer for the setting called Nicely Done, and that's at our drive-through page, and that'll give you a whole absolutely beautiful primer for the setting. It's all got all these double page spreads.
Is that a nicely done, or is it more like that nicely done?
There's a bit of a cheap pun in there, in that the main adversary in the game is called Nicely, and it's nicely comma done because you do kind of stitch up Mrs. Nicely in the game. But I don't want to spoil too much of that either. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, huge. I mean, dystopian is the main feature of the setting. Jumping back to that. But yeah.
Okay. And people can find that primer on the site of Handiwork Games, right? Yeah,
so you'll find a link to the drive-through. It's a free download on drive-through RPG. But yeah, if you head to handiwork.games, and it's handiwork with an I. Sometimes it gets spelt with a Y, but it's definitely with an I. Handiwork.games, and you'll find it there on our A-State page.
Okay. And we've talked about what kind of people you play and how you play. Is it going to be just like a one-off? This is A-State, or is it going to be a line? How is this going to be supported?
We will see how we do, obviously, on Kickstarter. It would be really nice to do a line of books. We've got... It was quite interesting because the main author of the game, Malcolm Craig, pretty much retired from working in games. He also wrote Hot War and Cold City, that were very, very popular games around the same kind of time, early 2000s. It was sort of a bit of a UK indie scene for a little while. And Hot War and Cold City were very popular. He kind of retired. I think he got a bit fed up. He was badgered by a lot of people constantly. He was pursued for information, largely about supplements for A-State. So I don't want to invoke that curse that we will now be pursued for all time for information about supplements. But hopefully, Malcolm is very, very into what we're doing now. He's back out of retirement in RPGs, which is quite remarkable. He had sworn never again, but he's back. We've convinced him somehow to come back. In fact, we've got an amazing team on the game because Gregor Hutton, who's the author of a game called 316 and another game called Best Friends. Best Friends is a little bit lesser known, but I think Best Friends is a great RPG. 316 was his big hit. He kind of started out working on A-State, and he's back as well. And we've got the whole old gang back together. Paul Bourne was the original artist, and he works for us at Handiwork Games. So yeah, we've got the old team back together. But anyway, the question was about supplements. Yeah,
depends.
Yeah, probably.
Depends, and
depends.
Please,
if we don't fund, we won't do any of it.
And please don't badger the authors too much, because they're going to stop working on RPGs altogether again, probably.
Yeah,
so,
no.
Good.
Yeah, they will down tools if they get too much email.
Yes, be nice and let them take the time. Artists are like that. I've been told. I'm not an artist. Good. Let's talk a little bit about Beowulf, because people were already kind of perking up in chat. Beowulf. So, I guess it's based on the saga. So that's my starting point to this.
Yeah, the epic poem, which is arguably kind of the original fantasy story, which upsets people when I say that, because it's a great work of fiction, a great work of literature. The first piece
but it's got monsters.
Yeah, it's all in there.
Quests and
magic swords, and it's all there. So yeah, we took the poem as our starting point for the most exciting part for me in it. Is a duet play for 5e. So one GM and one player. So a singular hero like Beowulf is in the poem. And to make it all work with 5e and the 5e action economy and so on, you have a band of followers with you who you can develop over time. You can do journaling between games to improve, and that mechanically improves your followers. People get very attached to their followers in the game.
So wait a second, you always play with only one player? Or is there a party system?
You can play it with a group, we do have a section in the rule book for that. It is possible to play it with multiple players. It's primarily designed for one player, one GM, which really excited a lot of our play testers when they first heard about it. Were excited to kind of join in and play the game, and when they heard, oh, you only need to find one other person, because we all know what it's like trying to get a group together.
Yes, especially now.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
really difficult. We have to be very careful when we talk about how it was lucky that there was a global pandemic when we're producing a game for two people. It's not lucky.
Okay, let's put it like this. You had great timing producing a game.
Accidentally,
Yes, accidentally. That works well under...
Yeah, but
pandemic
completely,
situation.
it was already difficult enough getting gaming groups together, which is where we came from with the idea of just one GM and one player. So yeah, that's its kind of unique thing. There's also there's a huge amount of setting material in the book, and people that are familiar with my work, we came to it through I sort of learned more about Beowulf. It's always sort of in the background, isn't it? Beowulf, if you read anything, I guess, through studying Tolkien. For the Lord of the Rings work that I've done, and I just got more and more interested in Beowulf as a kind of source of so much of that stuff. Yeah, like dragons, and Smaug gives a pretty straight lift from Beowulf. So yeah, all that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so we have got the hero, we've got the followers, and then what does the hero do? Because a Beowulf hero, he journeys, and then at the end of the story fights the one big amazing fight, and then he croaks. So what
spoilers?
The spoilers for a poem from which century again? Okay. Spoilers, Beowulf doesn't survive the Beowulf poem. Yeah. And well, okay. Trying not to spoiler any more other medieval poems. Yep. What kind of stories are you going to tell, and how does that work in 5e with the power levels that you need, and how big is the hero going to be in the end?
So, I mean, pretty huge by the end, but we take the same kind of structure. Again, something we wanted to do is make it very easy to pick up as a game. So we offer quite a structured approach in that every Beowulf adventure sees exactly what you've just described, that the hero hears of another area in trouble, travels there in their ship. Every hero in Beowulf has a ship and can always get a ship to transport them and their followers. They go to some far-flung kingdom that they've heard is in trouble. They then investigate what the situation is, what the monster is. It's always a monster every time. It's a bit like Scooby-Doo in that respect. And they have to uncover the way in which the monster can be defeated, which again is really mechanically supported with a lot of stuff we've put in the book. They uncover the way to defeat the monster, and then set about arranging a big showdown with the monster. And yeah, it works really well. We've got something we do. We've got a free scenario that everyone can download. It's called The Hermit's Sanctuary. Again, head to our website and you can find that and download it. It's a full length thing. It's way too big to give away, but we did. And yeah, that was nominated for a couple of Ennies actually, which was really nice. Didn't win any,
but it was nominated.
But we were there. We stayed up till 4 a.m. to not win anything.
I've been told that winning an Annie, if you want to win an Annie, you have to be in the game early and vote for the judges who will like your stuff.
Ah, right, yeah.
So I've been told by people who've won Annies. So
I'm sure there's yes.
I guess. As with every accolades you can get in any industry, it's also knowing the system, I guess. But it was recognized.
It was nominated, and it's one of those things that when you don't win them, they're not important and they don't mean anything. And when you do win them, then the judges are very, very clever, and yes. It's all very well deserved. So yeah, we try and keep these things in perspective.
Absolutely. Well, this time around, maybe it was a fluke.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sure it was.
Let's talk a bit then about the setting. As I said, you always have a ship, so I guess it's basically small bits of setting, and you have a lot of sea in between. Yep. Do you have a world map, or do you generate a map?
We do. we do provide a world map. Something that was really interesting during development of the game is we really struggled. Originally, we almost wanted the player to be drawing a map of kind of the Whale Road, as we describe it, and it's described in the poem. This sort of archipelago of kind of North Sea and Baltic islands and so on. But the more we tried to force a map into it, the more it became clear, actually, the historical Anglo-Saxons whose poetry this was, they're not big map makers. There's very few maps actually made by the Anglo-Saxons, and they tend to be under the influence of Rome or Saxons that had gone to Rome that made maps. So in the sort of ancestor time of Beowulf that sort of predates the people who told the Beowulf story, there aren't really any maps. And so we provide a great big nice double-page spread map of sort of Northern Europe, the Baltic, the North Sea, and so on, to help players understand the scope of the setting and where it takes place. But it really doesn't matter in the game, because every session you kind of hear the call for help and off you go in your ship. Some stuff happens at sea mechanically, and then you arrive there. It doesn't really matter where it is. A little bit like, like the Odyssey or something like that, where it's quite... the Odyssey isn't serialized. I'm mixing two things together there.
But still, it's quite a bit. It's like, how can you take so much time getting from Troy back home?
Yeah, that's a sort of 3-day sailing trip takes yeah. But that similarity that you're going from place to place, and actually a kind of, if you wanted to draw a map as part of your player journaling, like downtime journaling that improves your followers, then yeah, definitely you should do that. But it's not necessary to do that, nor really necessary to have a map as such, because you just go to the next place the next week and have an adventure there. So yeah.
Okay, but the map that you use is actually of Baltic Sea and Scandinavia and Northern Germany of that time. Okay.
Yes, it is. So, yeah.
Yep. You can have adventures in Jutland and then sail over to Gotland and whatever you want.
You can, and it really, something we're at great pains to stress in the book is, if you know something about places like that, then by all means use it. If you know about the history, by all means use it. But you don't really need to know that stuff. I've had an absolutely brilliant time researching all and learning more and more. And a lot of our players now are finding out, a similar joy in getting books about the early church and so on. Christianity appears in the game. And obviously it has to, because it's a sort of tension within the poem. But you can kind of apply as much or as much of that or as little of that as you really want, which is something we sort of try to make sure of in the design of it.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk a little bit about design, because I guess rather few people know what Iron Age, early medieval people actually looked like and wore, and what kind of weapons they had, because people watch series like Vikings, which amazingly sometimes get it completely correct looking at one weapon and then completely wrong the next moment. So
it's quite strange, isn't it? Now, again, I would say, and I think we've even got a line in the book about this, if you want to use our Beowulf game to basically play Vikings as you see it on that show, but who are we to judge? Go for it. We've provided enough stuff there that you can do that without any problem. Personally speaking, it drives me bonkers, that program. It's such a shame. It looks so good, I didn't start watching it for ages. I was saving it, and then I just about went berserk and watching the first episode, because I'm sort of this awful history purist.
I get it. I didn't finish, but I studied European archaeology with kind of specializing in Viking Age. Okay. And we tried to watch it, and I guess Nico decided that it's not worth watching it with me.
When you're shouting at the TV.
That's wrong. That's wrong. That's wrong. That's actually right. That's nice. So design-wise, you being an artist yourself, did you put down guidelines and have the artists look at, here, these are the things that were actually found, these are the archaeological finds, these are the runestones?
I'd built an enormous Pinterest board anyway for my generalized stuff, what is that under if you want to go? So pinterest.com, I think it's /Johnny Hodgson Art or John Hodgson, one or the other. And so that was a brilliant resource. I had built that up while working on the One Ring, which of course came from similar roots, this sort of early medieval inspirations. Beowulf sort of more so. There's less kind of fantasy really in Beowulf, which I enjoyed. Picked people who, so all the monsters in the game were done by Scott Purdy, who works with us at Handiwork Games. He's kind of our lead artist. He's brilliant at monsters, but he didn't need to know too much about early medieval history for that. I handled an enormous amount of the other artwork, and there's a guy, Jan Pospisil, who is an absolutely fantastic artist. He's done loads of work for loads of historical stuff, and we share a lot of common influences, and so I didn't have to brief him particularly. He knows his stuff. He did all the pencil drawings of like the old gods and so on, and did an absolutely beautiful job of it. But mostly it was me, so I didn't have to tell anyone what to do.
Yes, I was about to say
saddled myself.
The cover art looks very much like it's yours, right?
Yes.
Very,
yeah, it is mine. Yep. I was talking about that actually with our graphic designer. We were just setting up the in print because we're just printing it now, and it's going to have this lovely spot UV sort of varnish design over the top of that artwork. And we were talking about that artwork. I was thinking, no, it feels a bit weird because I run the company. Nobody checks my work, and I was like, do you think that's all right? And he was telling me off, going, what are you talking about? It's really good. But he has to say that. So
yeah. Part of this job description.
Yeah, tell me I'm good. Yeah.
Okay. And you said that Beowulf so far is out as a PDF.
Yes, it's already out. Yep.
And when will it be out in print?
So we need. It's in that tricky stage at the moment where there's a few unknowns, but it's a matter of weeks now. It'll be going out to our backers. We've got 1,000 or so backers that will need to be sent their copies. So we're a couple of 2D4 weeks away, I think, hopefully towards the lower end. I get very nervous about this point because if things can not so much go wrong, but if we need to change things during the printing process, then obviously that will slow us down. But we're close. About a month away, I think, from it being on sale to people.
Okay. I like a handful of D4 weeks.
Yeah, it's about right. Yeah. And again, the printer that we use, they're based in Lithuania. Sometimes I've worked with them for years, and sometimes they will turn around a whole print run in an impossibly short amount of time. I just don't. But those machines go really fast. If you're in the right place at the right time and they press the button on the right day, it happens very quickly. But who knows?
Now, this is a weird question that I didn't have to ask until this year. Is it going to be Europe continental friendly to order this? Yeah,
well, happily, of course, Patrick, who runs over at Valag, is helping us out with that. So the books will actually stay in the EU. It's tremendously sad that about 100 copies will come to the UK, and that'll be it. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous, the whole thing. I'm not very happy about this Brexit nonsense. Very upsetting and difficult for no benefit whatsoever. But there we go. I mean, obviously, I'm keeping my political opinions close to my chest there. But yeah, very frustrating and upsetting, and I don't like it.
Let's just put it like that. Anyone I've ever talked to who actually needs to sell books to people not in the UK is not very happy.
Yeah, no.
Just stated like that. It's not making it easier.
It's interesting thinking about the future of what we do. For example, we do miniatures for Beowulf.
Yes.
And just moving the miniatures from here to Germany, it's just going to be difficult. Whereas before I just put them in the post and that was it. And now, but I would like to understand some sort of benefit to the difficulty, but there isn't one. So I don't know. I'm not,
We are probably not going to find it.
No.
The benefit that we're looking for to the situation
more paperwork,
in this talk.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about the miniatures just for a second. What kind of miniatures are these? Are we looking at heroes? Are we looking at monsters or looking at the followers?
Sure. I've got a box here. Look. So let's now do that really difficult thing of trying to aim it at the camera and get a light.
Yes.
So there's a little beautiful little box set of miniatures. It is 8 heroes and 1 monster. In there, let's see if we can. This will be too dark to really come out on the. Oh yeah, that's not going to work very well. They're absolutely beautiful little figures. They're metal, quite old school. and designed kind of designed by me, I guess, all based on my artwork, but sculpted by Richard Dickens, who's kind of friend of Handiwork Games. I've known him for years, absolutely brilliant sculptor. And they're you can pre-order those now. Actually, they're a lovely little set of miniatures. Again, head to our website and there's lots of information there about those. But yeah, that was really nice to do those. And they're all sort of early medieval looking characters, so they would work for a lot of different stuff, I think.
Yeah, and one question, I know that it doesn't fit with the early medieval hero setting, but could I play a female?
Of course, of course. Yeah, yes. I think I would perhaps argue that it does fit better than maybe.
Well,
some people.
It's a discussion. I'm fairly on the side of Dick sides, where they found out that 1/3 of the people who died on a battlefield were women, and probably fighting too. Yep. So let's put it like this.
And I think there's enough. There's enough evidence there that in a game about fighting monsters, I think we could. Isn't it strange where people will entertain all this incredible, fantastical material, but not allow.
But a woman with a sword is not realistic.
Yeah, I know. If you're going to pick some things to not be realistic, that seems like a strange place to start. But there we go. That's the world we live in, apparently. But yes, you can absolutely play a woman character, and a whole bunch of our pre-generated characters are women. And of course, this is so strange, isn't it? Because to me, it's like, well, obviously, but yeah.
Let's put it like this. I've had this discussion a lot of times before with other games, and I'm always glad when we don't have the discussion, and I'm just, give me my power fantasy. I also want to be a badass and slay monsters as a female. Very good. And last question about Beowulf. What kind of monsters are they going to be? Because I can see a giant snake thing on the cover, and there's probably going to be dragon-like stuff.
Yep, there is. We've got a whole bunch of sort of. Now, because it's for 5e, we do categorize monsters, but we also kind of make it clear that in stories and in the poems, monsters are not really categorized, if you like. It helps you run the game, and it's something that players expect. But we have a huge wealth of sort of troll-like monsters, trolls, ogres, giants, all with old English names that I can't possibly even begin to pronounce. But there's a lot of those sort of great big ugly brute kind of Grendel-like monsters, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we've put in from various bits of folklore that we feel are within the same kind of purview. So I'm going to really slip up now and go blank and not be able to remember any of them. There's a 60-page bestiary in there, so there's loads of stuff, but yeah, we've definitely got dragons and giant worms and all that business. So yeah,
okay, the bigger the better.
Yep.
Good. Let's talk then about, I think we've covered anything I could, that I wanted to ask and the chat wanted to ask about Beowulf, also about A-State. What else is happening with Handiwork Games? Do you have other things in the pipeline that you're working on right now?
Yeah, we're always sort of working on all kinds of stuff, different stuff. We do a lot of accessories for gaming as well. That's kind of where we first started as a company, because it was something we could achieve quite quickly and get some things going. I did these curiously named John Hodgson map tiles that are 6-inch square cardstock tiles, and they really took off on Kickstarter. It was the first Kickstarter I did. And it made like £20,000, which I didn't expect. I honestly thought it had a goal of 500. And I know sometimes people put really low goals. Yes. But I thought it might make £1,000 if we were really lucky. And it did 20,000, which meant a lot of packing envelopes that I didn't expect to do. And then we did some more, and we did another Kickstarter. And so yeah, our map tiles, I've just restocked all those. We've had those reprinted. So they're all back in stock, and we do all kinds of different themed sets. So there's like the most popular ones are dungeon ones, predictably enough, but you can get things like hill forts and kind of heathland and water tiles and all kinds of different stuff. We do some lovely sci-fi ones as well, actually. They're really nice. So yeah, they're worth checking out. What else do we do? We do loads of dice trays and things like that with our friends at All Rolled Up. We get on really well with Phil and so on, and we do all sorts of designs with them. What else have we got going on? I feel like I should probably know more what we're up to. We're working on, there's a game I'm working on at the moment that I can't really talk about, but people will probably be very happy to see me working again in that particular world, it's a Middle Earth thing. It doesn't matter if it's not the One Ring second edition.
Yeah,
I'm
because
not producing art for that. I am doing some writing on that, but I'm not producing art. And yeah.
Okay, because I've always very much enjoyed your style for the One Ring, because it's got this
thank you.
kind of this moody fairy tale feeling to it, and always we've talked a lot about the One Ring a lot, and always the artwork is one of the high points of the game.
Oh wow, thank you very much. It's weird to discuss because
there's quite some baggage.
Compliments.
Oh, you didn't.
And
just take just take them and say thank you, I guess.
And yeah, I guess that's it. Yeah, thank you. And the other thing is, it's just sort of it's the only way I know how to do it. So Anyway. And I mean, I really like what they're doing on the second edition. I think it's really great. I think Martin Grip's really good. I think it's really it's a fresh take that they had to do. Francesco was talking about this the other day. It's with a new company. It needed to be, it needed to change, I think. And it's really great because they've advanced the timeline. So it's closer to Lord of the Rings. And I think that more moody, even more Northern European.
Darker, yes.
Yeah, we're moving from sort of Scotland and my inspirations. I can see some beautiful scenery out of my window. I can see across to the Oakle Hills, and it's always rain and stuff and all that. But now we're in Sweden now, so it's
it gets even colder and moodier, darker, more metal,
maybe. Maybe, yeah. I think I mean, all the better. They don't need me to wish them luck. They've just made however many bajillion.
Yes, I think they didn't they crack like the $2 million in the end.
I think so.
I think they're quite safe.
I stopped. I didn't. Yeah. Yeah, I think they've done all right. It's okay. Good on them. I'm so pleased for them. It's great. It's really good.
We've got a question in chat. What about any news about Hellenistica?
So that is still it's a work in progress. We still are planning on bringing it out when it's ready to come out, but of course you can't rush the magic of Ken. So we shall see. We will certainly be updating as soon as we've got more to share on that. It's kind of an ongoing thing at the moment.
Okay, so far I only know that Kenneth Hyde and you are working on it.
Yes,
what kind of game is it?
Oh, okay. So it is a kind of interestingly anime-influenced Hellenistic Greek setting. Ken has been running a campaign in 13th Age for Hellenistic for it must be years now. He's been running that campaign, and it's kind of bonkers as you would expect. There's bronze colossi being driven around like mechs, and there's all kinds of incredible Ken stuff. And yeah, we're going to convert this to 5e. And maybe 13th Age as well. We'll see how we get on. We're still working on rule stuff and setting stuff for that. So yeah, it's a work in progress. It's not one I can really put dates on. It's one of those. I don't put dates on anything. Why am I saying that?
You only put dice.
Yeah. I mean, even it's games we're printing. I'm loath to tell you when you're getting them, but largely because. You know how if you want to do anything well, it's going to take the time it's going to take. So
okay, and now I have to ask. I can imagine like very high fantasy Hellenistic game, but what's the anime influence? Is it the kind of storytelling or
it's
like
very,
shonen exponential power levels?
Yeah, there's a lot of exponential power levels. It's almost like a visual thing. It's very high saturation. It's very sort of almost turbocharged, if that makes any sense. I wish I had it on the tip of my tongue. There's some text describing it on our website, which you would think I would be able to bring up, but I daren't use any other internet sort of consuming things on my computer in case we lose connection. But it's all that's all wine dark sea stuff, very melodramatic, quite a sort of youthful setting and feel to it. Everything is very dramatic and kind of quite over the top. That's the kind of anime setting, really. We shall see how much that comes into the artwork. I'm still working on that. I've got a few people in mind who I think could do a really good job of. My references for anime artwork are I used to work in a comic shop, but 20 years ago, so all my references
I get it. Oh, and the internet is out again. No. Obviously, Brexit is also influencing how well the internet is working between the island and us at the moment. I've actually pulled up the Hellenistica quote that he was talking about. Beautiful youths pilot bronze colossi suits against skyship armadas. That is one sentence that I think tells you a lot about the setting. Very, very small number of words. Okay. And he's dropped out completely. I'm not John Hodgson, as you might have thought. And we're going to talk about what you do, which is working on a game called Chronopia.
Chronopia. It's got a lot of pronunciations. It depends on the language.
Okay. And it is a game that already existed once, and this is kind of a remake or a second edition that we're talking about, right?
No, it's, first of all, hello everyone. Guten Abend, Freunde. I'm Ilias Papadopoulos, calling from Greece. I told you I have kind of a rusty German, so, but that's the most I can get to. So,
But it sounded pretty good.
Oh, Dankeschön. So this is the revamp of an old game that used to be around in the 90s. It used to be published by a Swedish company called Target Games, and it was around from 97 until 2001. It was based in an older RPG game called Drakarok Demoner that was also published by a Swedish
Target,
company.
yes. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it was a complete and a very successful one range of miniatures, complete with lore, a very rich lore that was around for 5 years, give or take. Unfortunately, for other issues that the company ran around, the game stopped being published at 2005. The last miniature, I think, was published at 2005. And now here we are trying to revamp the game to allow the audience to visit the great world of Chronopia, which in my opinion is one of the richest worlds in fantasy lore around. So what I want to try to present to all you is, first of all, the story, if you will allow me.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Tell us about the world and the story.
In the world of Chronopia are 4 mortal races and one that has a bit of a twitch. So we will talk about it last. First of all is the Firstborn. The Firstborn are, give or take, the baseline humans. They are knights. They are led by an illustrious being called the One King. He's the best king around, clad in golden armor. They have the classic tropes of armor, big shoulder pads, knightly orders. You name it, everything around classic fantasy literature, it's in the Firstborn. Also, they are, by definition, they are the main pivotal characters of the whole lore. Then we have the Black Bloods. The Black Bloods are a conglomeration of races. They consist of 4 races. The first one, it's the Orcs. The Orcs are the biggest population in the empire, of the unified empire of the Black Bloods. They are the biggest population. But unfortunately, they are subdued by the ogres. Secondly, it's the goblins. The goblins are short. They are considered inferior by the rest of the empire. They are considered insignificant. That's why they have the feeling of neglect, and they are trying to break away from the empire. Maybe there is a twitch in that goblin theme that we will visit again in the future, of maybe a revolution or a breakaway faction.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then on Goblin Homeland.
Yep. Make the Goblin land free. Yeah. Then we have the Trolls. The Trolls are, by appearance, they are very savage, they're very large. They have 4 arms, 2 main arms and 2 ones coming from their back. But despite their appearances, they are quite friendly. Of course, no. If I saw a troll in the street, I would not ask the time around.
Okay. He doesn't look very friendly, but he's...
Yep.
He's
Images,
got really firm buttocks to turn the miniature around.
Exactly. The final race in the Black Blood Empire is the Ogres. The Ogres are the the royalty, the chieftains. They are very large, around 2.5 meters tall. They're very muscular. They're very savage, and they have subdued all the other population of the empire. And now they are the emperor comes from their ranks. All the royalty comes from their ranks. With one small exception, the orcs are the scientists. They are the guys that hold the mysteries of alchemy in their hands. So also this is another trope. They are, diplomats. The orcs are the diplomats and the guys that are sent around to speak on behalf of the emperor, of the ogre emperor. Moving past the black. Yeah,
I like that the orcs are the smooth ones and the scientists. And that's a nice turnaround on the trope.
Exactly, because we have grown accustomed of savage orcs and no, here they're not so much. They are more like diplomatic, more like
smooth
flowing
orcs.
Around. Yeah. Then moving away from the Black Blood Empire, we have the elves. The elves used to be the main antagonists of the Firstborn. Mm-hmm. They are divided into 3 main large houses. The first of them is the Crystal Lotus that pivots around the theme of ice. They're icy elves. The other is the theme of Helios. Helios is the sun. They are the more martial elves. And finally, we have the Obsidian Serpent elves, which are more like with an evil twitch on them. The elves are not like Tolkien elves. They, in appearances, maybe they look like them, but they're more arrogant, they're more scheming, and I would not really characterize them as nice people. They're always trying to hit you in the back. So if you meet an elf in the street, try to have your guard up, because something is going on around that. Moving away from the elves, it's the dwarves. The dwarves is the last of the mortal races. The dwarves live in a vast cavernous system called the labyrinth. They live underground. They really mind about the business of the upper world. And they are smiths, they are miners, they mainly look at their business, but when somebody tries to mess with them, they take it to the surface and try to fight back. Also, the dwarves have one small detail that sets them apart from the rest. They have totems. Totems are their gods made manifest in flesh and blood, walking with them in their caverns, in their great labyrinth that lives right below our boots. Finally, moving past the mortal races, we have the devout. The devout is something that people would have to study, to read more about that in the lore, but let's call them a breakaway faction from the Firstborn. Initially, they were Firstborn, humans like us. They turned their back to the One King, and they pledged themselves to the Dark Lord, to the bad guy of the whole setting. So the bad guy, the Dark Lord, the Dark One, started giving them powers to call forth the Warp Realms. The Warp Realms is practically the hell.
Okay.
So, yeah, they have some magicians with the ability to call forth warp powers and demons. So they started evolving from base bad humans to a mix of human and demon.
So we're talking horns and fangs and claws, things like that.
All the classic ones. In the future, we will start having, because there are 4 different factions in the Devout, each faction will evolve into something kind of different. Also, they have evolved the art of necromancy. They have the ability to raise the dead. So their legion is practically endless.
Comes in handy, recycling.
What could possibly stop them? Maybe we will see also that in a future expansion. Who knows? This finishes the lore part. Before I continue to the other parts of my short presentation, I want to state something. When we started working on this project, we wanted to remain as true as possible to the old spirit of the lore and the rules, but at the same time, we wanted to make everything new. We did not want to present to the wider public something that was stale and worn and outdated. So this was quite a challenge for us. We had to keep the same artwork and make new artwork at the same time. We had to keep the same aesthetics in the miniatures and make new miniatures at the same time. So even to all of you, I have to state that we took every measure in order to ensure that the lore and the aesthetic remain true, but we brought all that 30 years in the future. So regarding the art, this brings me to the art part. The art part will be comprised of the old Adrian Smith artwork. It's completely iconic. I really urge you to just go and check the old artwork. In my opinion, is great. But at the same time, we're bringing the whole artwork part to the 21st century. At the moment, actually, a great cover art piece is made by a great artist named Ben Meyer. Actually, a couple of minutes ago, he was here on Twitch preparing the...
The code.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Ben also wrote me and said, hi, greetings from him, and that he will work on the cover artwork tomorrow again. So if you want to join and watch what Ben does, you can go into his Twitch. He says tomorrow at 1 p.m. and we're working on the cover. Yes, he does amazing work. I mean, he works for Magic, so sometimes, so that's
Hi, Ben.
kind of...
Keep up the great work. I'm really a huge fan of your work. So, moving away from the art part, let's move to the release plan. First of all, the game will hopefully launch in Kickstarter at the end of the year. Each faction will initially receive enough miniatures to ensure that all players have a rich game experience. You will have everything you need to play. And depending on how successful the Kickstarter is, extra units are already being processed, are ready to be launched at the first possibility. And also, something else that I want to make clear to everyone watching us. The main prospect of the game is to release units regularly. If you come to our game, the game will not stagnate. You will get new miniatures every single month. And besides new miniatures, you will have support by thematic expansions, by new campaign systems, by new missions, by new lore. Everything will be expanding and growing, and you, the public, will be the one giving us feedback in order to ensure that things move to the position that you want. You will give us the inputs, and we will provide the result that you want as a collective community. So finally, yeah, that's a new trope. That's something that everyone in the team wanted, that the public, the players of the game really have an impact in the world.
So it's a living game. And
it's a living game.
We'll try to do it a living game.
Yes. Okay. Yes, that's the idea. With expansions in the future, for example, let me give you a very small spoiler. For example, encompassing the area of the north. So all the 5 factions will receive miniatures and lore and campaigns and missions on the north. So snow-themed stuff. Moving on after that, it will be something else. But the whole universe will expand and the people will have an immersive experience.
Okay. And finally, maybe goblins breaking off from the Empire.
Oh, do you know something?
Know something?
Nothing really, but someone dropped hints.
Are you sure? I think you know much already. So moving to my final part of my presentation is the game itself. The game is envisioned by Martin, so I don't to get in too much of a depth because Martin will provide a much better presentation of that. But the game will have so many formats. We envisioned a game that has never been envisioned in the past. So first of all, it will be the scale. You will be allowed to play the game in the skirmish scale with 5 to 7 miniatures per side with your friend in a game lasting around 30 minutes. So if you have a lunch break, let's go, bring your miniatures and play around. Then you will have the medium range, which is the old Chronopia. Let's call it the regular size, around 30 to 40 miniatures per side, which will take 2 hours, give or take, having fun and conversation in the meantime. Finally, we will have the massive scale. In the massive scale, hundreds and hundreds of miniatures will fight one against the other. You will bring all your friends in the table and you will have a very epic experience. This is the size part of the game. Now let's move to the format of the game. This game will allow you to play player versus player, the classic one that we play every Saturday, before COVID at least. We met and we played with your friends, one against another. Now it has other options to play solo, to play you against the game, to play Battle Royale, to play against to make a battle with an odd number of players. So if you have three friends meet in a house, and the third guy wants to watch, no, you do not need to watch. You can play in an odd number of players in the battle. So, but I think I went too much in the depth in the fields of my friend Martin. Let me give the floor back to him so he will explain better on the game mechanics, and afterwards I will be free to answer your questions.
Okay, good. Let's talk game mechanics, because Chad has already been asking, is it for people who are already old hands at miniature games, or is it for people who are new to playing miniature games?
It's actually for both. Many of the mechanics are similar to the old school, but the idea and the mentality of the game is new. Also, there is a bunch of new miniatures that look stunning, and I'm pretty sure that every one of you, when he witnesses the new sculpts that we have made, he will surely want to get his hands on that.
Okay, good. Let's talk a little bit about rules, Martin.
Okay, so good afternoon, guten Tag, dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
As you see, my name is Marcin Malinowski, also known as Martin Hood. You might know me on this name as well. First of all, I would like to thank to Questing Night Games and Alan Davis for preparing for us this beautiful game board. Oh, Jesus Christ. Sorry.
Don't hurt yourself.
No, for preparing for us this beautiful game board and painting some of the miniatures, which I previously shown. And I would like to thank to David Kasperak, our pro painter, for bringing us a very nice orc swordsman to the table, so I could show it to you today. Okay. First of all the people probably wondering what dice the system is using. We will be using normal D20 as it was in the previous editions. Mm-hmm. So percentage dice, one is 5%. And maybe I will show you. I cannot show you.
Oh no! Oh, by the way, we lost Elias.
I think he disappeared.
Oh yeah.
He will join soon. Don't worry.
Yeah. He's coming back.
So something happened. I wanted to show you the card with characteristic, but I cannot admit it. Anyway. Every model in our games got the basic characteristics. It's 11 characteristics, which describes how good each model is in what. So, for example, there is a move characteristics, tells us how many inches the model might move. There is a close combat characteristics that tell us how good the model is in hand-to-hand combat. Range skill characteristics, which of course shows how good the troop is if he's got a shooting weapon. Dexterity, that value measures hand-eye coordination, reflexes, and balance. There's agility. This is a negative value that opponent have to deduct from his close combat when he tries to hit us. So, for example, if there's a small goblin, he will get a more agility because it's really hard to hit him when he's running around us.
Yeah.
Another, we will have a willpower. That model will use to cast magical powers and resisting it. So every model will get this characteristic. Again, is leadership. Leadership is basically how trained and disciplined the model is. Another characteristic is strength, determines how strong the model is. Wounds characteristics, so how many hits the model can take before we have to take him out from the board. Armor, that indicates how well protected the model is against damage. And the last characteristic is base size of a base, which the model, like the trolls, is on the 50 millimeter basis, and the normal orc, that's the orc archer, will have a 30 millimeters base. And the base itself, it's the characteristic not only tell us on which base we should put the miniature, but tell us how big the miniature is. So that got impact when we try to shoot them.
Ah, okay.
Okay, and the basic, the game is divided on turns. So each turn got 4 phases. Initiative phase, activation phase, fight phase, and end phase. And when we get through all the phases, we go back to another turn and go through them again. So I will make a short demo how the initiative phase works. Every player roll a d20 die and then add numbers of his own activation. So activation is, it might be a warband, which counts as 1, or it might be an individual model like a troll over there. So let's say the right side of our demo, orc swordsman and troll, we got 2 activations, and the left side got orc archers and orc swordsmen as well, just 2. So they are really equal. So whoever will roll less will get the initiative. So initiative went to the player on the left. And then we go into another phase, which is activation phase. And here, one player activates 1 unit, then another player activates 1 unit.
Okay.
And
so
it goes, forth and back till we activate all of our units.
Okay.
When we activate a unit, which is made from few different models, we have to activate 1 model at the time. And that model can do a few actions. Of course, it depends on what model is equipped with. If he's got only hand weapon, he cannot shoot. Yeah, he just can move and fight. If the model is equipped with a ranged weapon, he can move, shoot. He cannot double shoot. Anyway, everything will be listed what the model can do. If that will be a spellcaster, the spellcaster might cast the spells, and so on and so on. So let's do, for example, activate the swordsman, and they can do a basic movement of 5 inches movement value, or they can do advanced movement, which is movement value times 2, 10 inches. As you can see, it's enough to reach the model opposing side, but in the way we've got an obstacle, which is wall. And every obstacle the model travel to have to deduct 2 inches from their movement. So 10 minus 2 is 8 inches. We can move them closer, but not close enough to get involved in the fight. But this one, there's a gate between, so he can run. And then he can charge to get to another model. And to get into the fight, there are 2 ways. One way is a charge, which the model needs to travel in a straight line, minimum his movement value. Here was no problem, it was 10 inches in a straight line. And then I will present just for a second our prototype tokens. It's not the final version, some of them might be changed, but when the model charge, we put a charge token next to him. That will give a really big advantage later on in the fight phase to that model. So basically, it is a tactical game that you have to outsmart your opponent for you to get a charge token, not the opponent. Because you will get a pretty much advantage in the fight, even if at the beginning was not so. Okay, and we move the last models. They will run, but it's not enough movement for them to get. Again, he will run over the wall, so 2 inches less. And we get to another activation on the opposing side. In this side, let's move the troll over there. He just is far away, and let's move him closer. He can move 6 inches, so advanced move him closer to the 12 inches. Or we can move him and try to shoot with his net, it will be a ranged attack, but there's nothing in range really. So okay, let's move.
So he's going to run.
Yeah, he's just going to run. After we finish activation, it's really good to put activation token next to the warband. So later on, we know that the warband, the unit, already done their activation in the turn. Of course, if we are playing small skirmish when there are 2 or 3 models, it's obviously known that the model has been moved. But when we are playing really massive battles, yes, that might felt a little bit confused. And then we get into the archers. Archers are left alone, but they can now try to aim and shoot the opposing models. They have to shoot the closest enemy models, but if the models are in fight, like in here, they can choose another model. So we got somewhere far away a bard. Let's measure the distance. Yeah, the distance is in the distance range of the weapon. And to hit him, we've got 2 obstacles in the way. Each obstacle just deduct his range skill by 2. It really doesn't matter how big is the obstacle. Of course, if the obstacle blocks line of sight and if we cannot see the model, we cannot shoot. But if we see model, we got -2, -4. Orc archers range skill is 9, so -4 is 5. So we have to roll 5 or less on d20 to hit.
Okay.
Making a roll, and I rolled the 1, believe me or not.
I'm just going to believe you. I can't see it on camera. Is the one then a special hit, or is it just you made it because 5 is the number?
No. It's a special hit. Exactly. That's why I told it. Each weapon's got a critical range. It might be just one, well, like most weapons do, or it might be a bigger range. So, for example, if we have a two-handed weapon, it's really easier to do a critic hit than the normal weapon. What critic hit do? It's the model is not allowed to do any armor tests. So it's basically inflict the wound straight away. So that archer after the battle need a medal because 1 shot he killed our bard on the opposing side.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Kill the bard first. I get it.
Okay, and we do so on, so on. Of course, we can shoot to the close combat. But we have to do a few tests. For example, if we want to do it, because not every model has got their nerves to shoot into close combat because he can hit their own warriors. And even if they do, later on we have to, of course, roll to hit. And if we hit one of our models or the opposing model. But let's say that the rest of the orcs missed, so yeah, they don't deserve the medal today. Yeah, and that was all the activation phase done. So now we are getting into the fight phase, which really here will be resolved all the close combat. We don't have much. We just got 1 close combat here with 2 models. Probably in the next round, in the next turn, will be a lot more. But I didn't activate this. Anyway, we've got only 1, and the fight is simultaneously. That's why we needed a extra phase
for movement.
No, extra phase for fight.
For fighting. Okay.
For fight, because in the previous editions, the fight was done in the same as activation. When you activate the unit, you might hit in the same time. Here, because that game is close combat, more or less, than the shooting. So the close combat, it's not happening like I'm getting to you, attack the hits, and you're standing doing nothing. So always they have a chance to hit back, even if my model will kill opponent might strike back. Of course, there are a lot of situations that can outrun this rule, and that's a tactical way of seeing that game. But let's stick to this. So the model with a charge token, every model got a charge bonus stated on his card, unit card, or in a book. So he got more damage. We have to roll his close combat skill minus agility of the opponent. So his close combat is 8, agility is -1, but the opponent's got a shield, small shield, which adds another -1 to his agility, so -2. So the model hits only on 6s, but if he would have a helper, he would get another bonus to hit. So everyone would inflict. So the more models attacking the same model, just grows the chance to hit. But let's move back to the situation it was. I rolled
6s.
Let's say I rolled 6.
Okay, let's just imagine.
Yes, the model hit, and then each weapon's got their own characteristic of damage, how many attacks might be done. So if that would be a hero, he might hit 3 times with his sword, but that's just a regular orc, so had only 1 attack. And the damage is equal damage of the weapon plus strength of the wielder. So yes, it's 8 plus 1, 9 damage. And the orcs got armor value of 21. So to save that hit, he needs to roll 12 or less. Making the roll, it's 14. Now it's 14, yes.
So he didn't make
He didn't make it.
the saving throw.
He
Oh,
didn't save. He's dead. He's got only 1 wound. But still, and as usual, I forgot to add the damage. So he was saving on 10 or less, not 12, because it was +2.
yeah, he did make it anyway. So
But he can strike back, even if he dead.
with his dying breath,
Yes.
he's striking back.
And he miss. So now, after that, because there are no more models in the pair fight, really nothing happening. But if there would be, for example, another models, we would calculate the result of the fight, because the models might start panicking and running away,
Okay.
and so on and so on. So we have to do a leadership test of the losing side minus wounds that has been taken. So we deal 1 wound, so leadership -1, they have to do test on 11s. But if that would be other side, or for example, this model would die as well. So 1-1 is tied, nothing happening, they're staying. There are a few things that might add a score to this combat. Is, I will show, I don't know if I showed earlier, a beautiful painted banner. So each warband, yes, might have a standard bearer. And if the standard bearer is in 6 inches to the fight, you do not have to be involved in the fight, and it's really not good to put him into the fight, because he's always got armor 1 less than the rest. But he gives +1 to the score of the result. So even if nothing happening, there was no wounds inflicted, that banner might tell us we won the fight.
Okay, and so there's no chance your people are going to run away.
Yes, there's a chance that people can run away. We're doing that run away. And that was the end of the fight phase. And we're going to the end phase. In the end phase, we're removing all the tokens, activation tokens from the board. We are checking the spells that might disappear, and so many effects as well. The end phase is the phase for AI, because as Ilias mentioned, we are preparing for single-player game, for odd numbers of player against environments, and that environment needs AI, which will be moving around the board.
Okay.
Okay, so we finished the turn. We're going again to the next turn, again initiative, and so on and so on. And now I have to tell about a few things that there will be as well, like command points. I'll show closer. The command points. On every level of the game, each player receives number of command points, which will help the models fighting. We can spend the points to increase their chance to hit. We can spend their points to increase the chance to cast a spell. we can spend the points to make a counter charge. So, for example, if we see a savage troll running on us, we can spend the point and make a counter charge. They will meet in the middle, and they will fight both with a charge token. As I said in the beginning, charge token is what we need, really. The bigger model or the cavalry model not only increase the damage, but they will have a special skills, stunning opponent, so the opponent will not be able to hit when he's stunned. What else I can say?
How many rounds do you usually play?
Okay. How many rounds? It's again, it depends on the scenario, which in total today 648 different scenarios to play. Yes, it's a combined.
That's a lot.
Yes, it is a lot. That's why Elias said every game will be different, and that's only for player versus player. So there are six basic scenarios, which are about from 6 to 7 rounds of play. And then each scenario's got different type of deployment zones. So if we multiply the basic scenario by the deployment zone, we've got a number. And then we've got the secret missions as well. If we multiply by that, then we've got 648. There's a lot of different ways to play. And the modes of play. Player versus player. As you see, normal wargaming, we try to do balanced armies as possible. We've got a lot of beta testers who are working on the background even now and trying to find our problems in the stats. And before we will release the game, hopefully it will be as balanced as it could be.
Can I ask which size of game this would be close to that we just played with 2 units on each side? Because you said it's like the standard game, a small game for 15 to 30 minutes.
There are four levels. Ilias mentioned 3, but yeah, there's a small hero skirmish level, which is up to 5 models. There is a patrol fight, which I presented more or less. There were 2 units and the model, or then there's a normal battle size of a level, which is like Chronopia previously, so about up to 40 miniatures per side. And then there's a massive army level, which allows us to play with our whole collection, really. So the more models we've got, the better. And the rules is set to the levels as well. So if we're playing with a small skirmish, we put more terrain on the board. Mm-hmm. So there will be, because small skirmish missions, it might happen in the city. So we've got 5 models that running more like an RPG than the normal battle. Then a patrol, we can play with a little bit less terrain, but for example, half, and with 20 miniatures or 15, 20 miniatures per side. Then we go to the normal battle size, 40 miniatures, and of course the size of a board going bigger. So if we're playing the bigger battles, we need a bigger table, and the biggest table will be the biggest version of a game will be more. I don't want to compare it to, but it's like Warhammer Fantasy Battles was once day. So you put one forest onto the table, and the rest are the army. So always the biggest battles were on the open fields and not in the middle of the cities. But it's of course up to the players if they will decide to put more terrain onto the battle. It's totally up to them.
Okay, I've got a few more questions for rules before we talk, because there are also questions about background. Going to come back to that, but looking at the units that you have there, you activate a unit as one unit. Do they have rules how close they need to stay together, because they are rather
Yes, I should mention that before. Yes, so it's called the command distance. When we activate the unit, we have to choose a leader if we don't have to. If we don't have a leader in the squad, for example, we've got 5 ordinary orc swordsmen, and that's fine. So we're choosing one model, and it's 4 inches from that model. So all the miniatures have to be 4 inches to the model who's playing the leader in this turn, because in the next turn it might be different model. If they are far away, they have to just come back to the zone before that they will do something else. Then, when we add the leader to the unit, that distance is increasing by 1 inch. So if we've got a leader, the distance from 4 inches increased to 5 inches. And one more thing, if we've got the banner, that increased the command distance as well. So if you've got leader and the banner, the distance goes up to 6 inches. So the unit might be spread across the battlefield.
Okay. There's also a question about how much bookkeeping is involved. We've seen that you work with tokens to make sure that you know which parts of the army have been activated, who has charged, things like that. But there was a question about the values for weapons. Is the weapon stat, is that part of the melee or close combat stat, or do they have different stats depending on what you actually put on the miniature or what weapons you have? Because you said we are rolling for the attack and the damage that the weapon does, things like that.
The equipment's got their own statistics line.
Okay.
And will have as well their own equipment card.
Okay, so you can put a card down next to your stats for the.
Yes, of course, the card will be half size of a normal unit card. It won't be that big, so do not take a whole table by just the cards. And it's just a reminder of what weapon do. Because it's not like each weapon goes to just one model. For example, if you've got a sword, the exactly stats of sword going to the firstborns, to the dwarves, to the elves who are using just the sword. If we've got just a spear, the spear is exactly the same stats for all the races that will be using it. And of course, the card might be different. They might be with the sword showing firstborn sword and sword with elf sword, but basically the stats are the same. And the stats more or less telling us what type of a weapon it is. It might be cut weapon, it might be crushing weapon. That is used in advanced rules. So
okay.
I just skip it. Yeah, the game's got the advanced rules for the people who want to dive more into the rule set. And in the basic rules, just say, yeah, the sword is cut type weapon. Then we've got the range of that weapon, so that tells us if our miniature have to be base to base in the opponent model, or it might be half inch away, or up to 2 inches. There are no weapons that got range more than 2 inches, close combat weapons. Otherwise, it's just throwing weapons or bow shooting weapons. Then there's a number of attacks, which tell us how many dice we take in to make tests and how many hits we can do. The critic range I mentioned. So if we roll natural on our D20 dice, natural score by 1, 2, 3, depends on the weapon, we deal automatic damage. And how much damage it does. So to the close combat weapon, we add the strength of the model. So if that's really simple, if the orc will be using sword and hit, for example, swords got damage 8. And the orcs got strength 1, so it deals damage with 9 in total. But the trolls got, for example, strength 3, so it will do with the same weapon and more damage than the normal orc because he's bigger.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, good. I have a few questions about miniatures now, because we've seen you've held up some of the painted miniatures that you've used for the range. What material are they going to be, and how are you going to deliver them? Are they going to be in a blister, or are they already kind of cut out and you have the parts? What will it look like when I open a box with Chronopia miniatures?
Our intention is to deliver them in the boxes. Yes, and the model will be made from resin. Mm-hmm. So it will be resin models delivered in the box. In the box as well, you will find a base for the model, like 30 millimeters, exactly the base what is said in the rules, and the cards for the unit, for the equipment that the unit is using. So that will be the box. And I have to mention that each unit got a specialist. Yeah, like in our demo there was a bard.
Yes.
Who's been killed by
An
the
orc bard.
But every unit, when we're buying a normal models, for example, for every 3 models we can put specialist. And by specialist, we meaning heavy weapons, standard bearer, bard. That's the basic ones, really, who most of the units got. Not every unit is different, but that's the basics. And then there might be a different specialist that bringing some special rules, exactly only aimed for that unit. Okay. And then there will be sold separately. So when we will be buying a box of orc infantry, we will have just orc infantry, and then we have to buy a box of specialists to add them. Okay. That's the plan at the minute. Of course, I'm not saying it's a final plan, so it might change. We still got a few months to go to for the Kickstarter and later on, yes. But at the minute, it looks like that.
Okay. Then let's talk a little bit about lore again, because there were questions about other factions from people who are fans of Chronopia and of the world. We was like, what about Stygians? What about swamp goblins? What about these? What about that? So you have all of them in mind, although they're not there with the first starting set, right?
Yes. First of all, I want to make something clear. The world of Chronopia is absolutely huge, and the world is constantly evolving. So yes, the swamp goblins live in the south of the map. Yes, the Stygians are actually still slumbering. They have not waken up yet. Maybe they will in the future. It's a living world. And our intention is first to establish the main tropes, the main factions, before we start expanding. But rest assured that all the new factions, and maybe some new ones, will start making their appearance in the game.
Okay, those will come about at some time. There's also a little bit about a question about, well, it's formulated as why is it better than other war games? Or maybe rather talk about what is different or what makes it special. Because
I can answer
it plays rather, you know, if you've played a few war games, you can kind of say, that's how it works. I know these kind of stats. So I'd say it's a usual way to work a skirmish game. What sets it apart from other similar games?
Yes, and what sets us apart is a type of games we play. So we can, first of all, there's a lot of different scenarios for player versus player, which I think, not every war game can give us that exactly amount of types of games to play. Another thing is types of a game. So single player. If you don't have anybody to play with, you can play solo. So you can put your own miniatures into the board and then play against AI. And that will be like a scenario driven as well. So you can more like an RPG, I would say, and in the style of Diablo. So you've got one hero who's walking and killing the hordes of the models. Again, players versus environment that allows odd number of players to play the game. And to be honest, I haven't seen any war game that allows that. Of course, you can play like 2 generals versus 2 generals or 2 people versus 1, which is really not good
not fair.
Yeah, not fair. But yeah, if you've got that, you can play. But here, for example, 5 people come to play. Yes, everybody put their own hero and play against environments like hordes of goblins attacking or hordes of undead or whatever. Or they can play another type of a game, which is Battle Royale. Mm-hmm. Battle Royale on the board, we will put the tokens with equipment, with command points to collect. And you just drop your miniature, everyone dropping in different places, and try to gather the stuff over the game and then kill another players. Of course, it might be on the frag game. So in the battle royale, if the player dies, just go out of the game. But here we might set, for example, 10 turns, and if you die, you just regenerate, and the person who killed you got 1 point. And we play 10 turns. Whoever got the biggest amount of points is the winner. So, with the same miniatures, you can play as many as different types of the game as possible, really. And you can play solo, which, new war games try to put it now. And we are, I think we will be better than them.
Okay.
Just in that, I wanted to add a couple of more factors in the game. First of all, I really urge everyone to go check the miniatures in the gallery. Some of them have already been uploaded. The miniatures are stunning. Secondly, it's the lore. The lore, first of all, is one of the richest ones around. I really also urge the people just to take a glimpse of the old lore and imagine with the contemporary support and the means of the internet that were not available in the 90s, how much more depth and immersion you will be able to experience. And also there is the factor that the world will change by the feedback of the community. We are strongly committed to listening to the community, to having their feedback and allowing us to form the world at the will of their own.
Okay.
I want to add a few things. So if there are more questions that we won't have time to answer, so I invite people to our Discord channel. There's a Chronopia Discord channel in Uchberg Verlag server. There should be a link somewhere around in the chat. So you can go over there, ask the questions. I will be answering as soon as possible. Or Ilias, if it will be lore equivalent. And if the people want to be on top of news or the new miniatures that will be presented before the Kickstarter, please sign to our newsletter, and the link should be as well somewhere in the chat.
Okay. I have one more question about the solo mode, because I find it hard to imagine to use the same statistics and the same rules for playing one character against many, because as you explained, the rules, if you attack and there are more other miniatures that are in base contact, you get more and more and more bonus. So how does that work?
Yeah, there will be a slightly changes to the normal rules about that. Like, for example, we will put a normal orc swordman, and in the base game he's got 1/1, but when we play solo he will get a 6/1 from the start. Okay. And then he can collect better weapons. He can heal in the game. There will be like a treasure tokens. He can go and collect, not only killing hordes of enemies, but yes, our hero will be pumped up with characteristic.
Okay, it's not just going to be a normal orc hero.
No.
Okay, then the last few questions. When you start with the first sets for the 5 different factions that you've already talked about, how many different miniatures are we going to see for the faction? So we've seen now for the Empire, we've seen orc swordsmen, we've seen orc archers, and we've seen a single troll. So how many different ones apart from that are there going to be for each faction?
The absolute minimum that we plan is to have 5 different units per faction at the launch. But depending on the success of the Kickstarter, we have another 5 per faction at minimum. Of course, if the Kickstarter is very, very successful, more expansions will be present right from the onset.
Okay. And you talked about people should take a look at the miniatures. And we've talked with Patrick from Unsere Verlag, who are going to publish the game, and he's been showing us renders of new miniatures kind of like every week. So I've already seen them, and talk a little bit about the design idea behind it. Because, for instance, the Empire, they are influenced by, I'd say, the Ottoman Empire or by the Persian Empire. So
Yes.
it's not what you first would think about when you think orcs and trolls, right?
Yes, exactly. The tropes and the whole aesthetic is taken for the Black Blood Empire from Middle Age Ottoman Empire, the Sassanid Empire, these kind of things. The firstborn are classic Western medieval knights. The elves are kind of their own. They are spiky. They have lots of armor. The dwarves are more like Tolkienian dwarves, but the dwarves in particular have more animistic tropes, more animistic aesthetic. Each of the different clan will have a different aesthetic. For example, we will have the wolf clan. The wolf clan will be clad in wolf pelts, in wolf helmets, whilst the horned ones will have hooves and will look like rams and have different aesthetic. The devout are evil, bulky guys that summon the forces of the Dark One in our own world. So are more magical, they will have more monsters, they are more fanatical and mystical.
Okay. So in apart from the firstborn who are like very tropey, who are like, here is a fantasy knight, many of the other ones just have a twist or a different way to look at what you'd expect. So
exactly. And I want to connect what you said to the previous question about what's the new trope that Chronopia brings. Chronopia is a fantasy setting, but tries to move away from the classic standards. There is a new aesthetic. There is a taste for everyone. If whatever you have in mind, with whichever part of your personality you want to connect with, you will find your trope in this lore, in this world.
Okay. Personally, I like Sassanid orc bards. that is a very interesting
look. Sounds. I would love to hear how he sounds. Yeah.
I guess it looked a little bit like an alud. Sounds like
yes.
I'd listen to that. Okay. Good. So the Kickstarter is going to come late this year, roughly.
By the end of the year, yes.
At the end of the year. And since it's going to be in Urvik, is it going to be in Kickstarter, or is it going to use the platform that Urvik usually is on? Game on Tabletop. Do you know where you go?
Hard to say.
Okay.
We didn't establish that yet exactly on which platform it will be. I think it might be on the Kickstarter because it's more set to the worldwide than only to Germany. And I have to mention we will aiming. We should see as well how good Kickstarter will go to release it in different languages. So it will be basic in English. It will be translated to German, of course. It will be translated to Polish, hopefully to Greek as well, and Italian, all the basic, maybe Spanish. So when we release, every player might felt, straight away into the game, I do not have to translate it. I can read it in my own language.
It's really helpful if you have an international team working on it. And then some of the designers can look over the translations. Very good. I guess we're at the end of our slot by now, and I don't think we have any more questions from the chat. So it's time to say thank you for the talk and for the presentation. And
thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, that's my job, talking to you and looking at games. And Patrick from Urvik Verlag has posted the links where people can find you. Oh, there's a question about there being a Russian version in chat. So maybe we've got a Russian player in chat. That's probably a maybe.
Yeah, at the minute it's maybe, yeah. If we gather Russian players who are willingly to help to translate, let us know and we will think about it.
Okay, good. And people who want to take a look at the miniatures, Patrick already put the link in there. So they can talk to you at the Discord, and if they want to stay up to date, they can join up and pester Patrick about news, and we'll find out when and how and in which way and how many miniatures and everything else this is going to happen later this year.
Exactly.
I hope you have a great weekend, guys, and enjoy
You
the
too.
rest of the day.
Thank you very much, and stay safe, everyone out there.
Yes. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Good. We are going to stay. We might actually start with, on the first edition of RuneQuest, Greg misspelled Chaosium, which is
and Glorantha,
impressive. And Glorantha.
both on the cover.
That's a tradition. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah,
is that what you have to do with the first edition of a new game at Chaosium?
there's always some embarrassing typo or something that creeps in. All the way
It was-
to the very
it was-
last moment.
I mean, keep in mind that was the very, very first RPG that they had produced. And this was about the fourth RPG ever made. And they were trying to get it ready in time for Origins. And they were running late. So they threw the covers together. The art wasn't done. But they had, you had a hard deadline back then. And it had to be ready for Gen Con. And Greg, printed the however many thousand that they brought there. And on the back cover, it was, Glorantha. It was RuneQuest, the new game in the setting of Glorantha by Chaosium.
By Chaosium, okay.
Sorry, by the Chaosium.
Chaosium.
Hello, everyone. This is the third day of HeinzCon in 2021, and we're starting off today in the stream with Jeff Richard and Jason Durrell from Chaosium, from the Chaosium.
The Chaosium.
As I've just learned that Chaosium was called on the very first book that the company had. That is, welcome to the Unsere, because they have been very good at doing similar things.
Oh.
There was a book where actually they quoted an author named Jules Verne instead of Jules Verne, which
Oh, no.
we're always interested about doing stories about the unknown cousin of Jules Verne, Jules, and what he was up to.
And it's always the front and back cover where the really embarrassing typos creep in. I mean, the story here that Mahar was just talking about was the very first edition of RuneQuest was described RuneQuest as the new exciting role-playing game in the setting of Glorantha by the renowned gaming company, the Chaosium, and managed to get two major, misspell your company and your setting all on the back cover.
Wow.
That's 2 for 1.
Yes.
Exactly.
Are those books? Sorry, are
hopefully-
those books now rare prints that people?
We re-released the original edition of RuneQuest several years back when we did the classic RuneQuest Kickstarter, and we printed it, typos and all.
Yes.
Tradition is tradition.
Exactly.
Yeah, RuneQuest is one of the things we are going to talk about today because we've been talking a little bit about RuneQuest in German yesterday because Uhrwerk Verlag is publishing it in German. But now we're at the source and we can talk about what's going on with RuneQuest and where RuneQuest is coming from. As it said, Jeff, it was, the fourth role-playing game to be published ever?
Yeah, I mean, the first one would have been the original D&D, which was
chainmail. Does chainmail count?
Chainmail was a skirmish. I'm not going to count it. It was on the edge, but we'll call that. It will on the great edge between, is this a miniature skirmish game or is this a role playing game? We'll put D&D on the side of being a role playing game, and we'll say chainmail is on the side of being a miniatures. But I think. Let's see, you had Chivalry and Sorcery already. I think it predated. I think it was CNS was, I think, 75. Tunnels and Trolls, I think, was also at the same time. And Metamorphosis Alpha, I think, also predated it.
Really? Okay.
I think so. They're all, you basically had the release of the very original release of D&D, and then about a year later, you had a couple of others show up. And so RuneQuest was very much in that, first 12 to 18 months of gaming.
Yes. There was also Empire of the Petal Throne almost.
Well, that was D&D. Remember that used
Right,
D&D.
right. But I mean, it was printed as a standalone game. It wasn't a...
Correct.
Anyway, so very old game. Lots of pedigree there.
Yes, and still around and kicking.
Oh,
With your
yeah.
edition. Yeah, let's talk a bit about what's new coming out for RuneQuest, because I've been following accounts and I've seen the artwork coming out for something called the Red Book of Magic.
Yeah, with that awesome Mark Smiley cover.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that, Jeff?
Well, the big thing that we got coming out very, very soon, as in should be going to the printers very, very soon, is the RuneQuest starter set.
Yes.
Oh, you get a starter set.
Oh, God. This is so the RuneQuest starter set, it basically is it's got all the core, so short version of the rules, an introduction to the setting, a overview of, well, not an overview, a setting book for the city of Johnstown, an adventures booklet, a solo quest. What else am I missing in this one?
14 characters.
14 pre-gens? Yeah.
14 pre-generated characters, some reference material, some dice, some maps.
I mean, it's if you're familiar with what we did with the Call of Cthulhu starter set, basically what we've learned from that starter set up to up the production quality and the amount of content, and didn't really increase the price. Yeah. So
in full color,
beautiful
in every way.
I haven't gotten my hands on a Cthulhu starter set, so I can't compare. But solo adventure sounds very interesting. As in Germany, we actually have quite a long tradition of always having solo adventures for role-playing games. But internationally, those kind of died out for quite some time.
Yeah, but they did die out. One of the things, so with Call of Cthulhu has a number of solo quests, and even the name Solo Quest actually goes back to an old Chaosium product for RuneQuest called Solo Quest, and there were several Solo Quest scenarios, and we brought that back for Call of Cthulhu. That's the Alone Against the fill in the blank line, so Alone Against the Dark, Alone Against the Fire, etc. And now we're doing them for RuneQuest. And Solo Quest we have is absolutely fantastic, and is intended to teach every stage of the rules in a solo quest while doing something cool and exciting with your character. Yeah. So it's as much pedagogical as it is, awesome solo questing fun.
Yeah, it's certainly not as dull as, say, like if you start a computer game and you have learning the rules. Please go put this thing on the shelf. All right, now go kill a rat.
Move with WASD.
Yeah.
No, and it's not giving anything too much out. But what we do is you get thrown right into the middle of a major battle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
That sounds like a big thing for a solo adventure.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So the idea is for the very first thing that you do to be something cool and exciting from the get-go. And because I've always hated I hate it in video games. I hate it in role-playing games. I've always hated now you've made up your character, now go and kill some rats.
Or find your way out of the cave.
Oh, I hated yeah. I died in Zork trying to do that.
But no, we decided we wanted to have a really epic starting scenario from a pivotal battle that you ended up coming out of the thing, both understanding the world at large and also getting a sense of yourself as a character within it. So we're pretty happy with it. We've been externally and internally testing it. And, like one of our players was like, I did a fist bump at one point playing a game on my own
with himself.
Solo quest. He was so excited about this.
That was David, wasn't that?
He was very excited.
Okay, and that is in print right now. So
well, no, it's going to the printer.
Going
to the print.
I think
very soon.
Yes, and the Red Book of Magic, which you asked about earlier, that is at the printer and should be shipping back to it pretty soon. It's been at the printer for at least a couple of months.
And that was being printed, if I recall, that's being printed in Poland, so it should be available very soon.
Yes, very soon.
Doesn't need to cross any unnecessary tariff lines or oceans or anything.
Well, to get to here in Europe, it doesn't. I mean,
No.
get into North America, it does have to go across an ocean.
Yeah.
A smaller ocean.
In Australia, another big ocean. So.
Yeah. That's the Antipodes. Those guys, they live a long way from anything.
So, but that should be coming soon. And then shortly after that, later in the year, we'll be releasing a whole, at least 3 or 4 more projects.
Yeah, including some of the big art-heavy projects that I'm incredibly excited about. We have the Cults of Glorantha books with a plural and the S at the end, and it's a 2 volumes of cults plus a slim volume of just every god, spirit, etc. In the setting, and this is just lavishly illustrated. So Loïc Mouzy, who is a fantastic French artist, has done 170 pieces for the Cults book.
I've seen several one of those also that have already been teased.
We
need to talk about the art.
What?
We need to talk about the art because the first thing I thought was this looks not American.
No.
Because
I really don't think any of the rooms looks American.
Because as a European and we both have been living in Europe for quite a while, looking at the art in American fantasy stuff is usually if you want to make it sexy or if you want to make it cool, you could do it in a different way without being kind of prudish about it at the same time and always looking the same, all of the characters. But with the Loïc Mouzy art, it's colorful and different shapes, and lots of it looks very South Asian from the design and from the shapes of the characters, especially the goddesses who look like some of the Indian art that you might know. That was very surprising to me to see something put out by an American company that looks so very, not American, to put it like that.
Well, this has been a big part of my focus on the RuneQuest line has been putting together a team of artists that visually are making something very different than what you would see with D&D or Pathfinder or other fantasy, and part of that is that RuneQuest is very different. It's Bronze Age. It's got that ancient world, South Asia. It's much more Asian than it is Northern European. That most of the art references, you can basically take a band from the Balkans to India, and that's where a lot of the look of it comes through. Is that belt, which is also a lot of the things that you associate when you think of with the ancient world,
right? Mesopotamia, early Greek, Etruscan stuff. All of this going for even pre-Roman era.
Yeah. And, so you have that, and it looks very different because from most American fantasy art, because in general, most American fantasy art is generic medieval.
Yes.
It's kind of a variant of merry old England.
Yeah, or as we like to say, what Americans think medieval looks like.
Right. Yes, yeah, it's medieval street at Disneyland, right?
Yeah, basically.
There are many great artists from America. Don't get us wrong, but we find that a lot of the American art we see is stuff that feeds on other American art and this sort of very strong Tolkien medieval sort of worldview, whereas that's really not the world of Glorantha.
Yeah, I mean, right now the artists, I'd say on Glorantha, we have a lot of really fantastic French artists, Loïc Mouzy, Agatha Pate, and she is just fantastic. She's the one that's doing these elaborate, just I'd say almost hyper information, just layered and layered and layered art of the gods, and her pieces all tell these complex stories with dozens of characters. Yeah, you're just shaking your head.
No, I'm laughing because I'm wondering if she's going to sneak a Waldo into the background of one of the
Oh, she always she sneaks she has if I recall, Agatha has a Maine Coon, which is the model for Yinkin.
Yeah,
the cat god.
I was wondering, that is probably a cat god.
There's a cat god, and you'll see in half the pieces you have, there's hanging out somewhere.
Yes,
it's the happy cat god.
Yes,
but she is fantastic.
Yeah, we've got like Katrin Dirim, who's doing. She's Turkish. Her stuff is drawing from this other very rich visual tradition there, and that's one of the reasons that we find the work that we're getting from our artists so I think it's so delightful, because in many cases they're drawing from art traditions that, for example, as an American, I wasn't exposed to some of this stuff. So it seems very rich and new to me. And these artists, in some cases, they've been working in American game stuff, and they've been doing this sort of quasi ye old medieval world stuff, and so they're really delighted at being able to come in and just do this amazing stuff. We've got like newcomers like Hazem Amin, who's
from Kerala, and Southern.
And his stuff is so gorgeous, so color rich, and such a different sensibility for composition that it's really amazing. And another thing, and I think it is worth pointing out, is that we are getting a lot of female artists, and that has another I think it's a very strong influence in the style and the way that the books look, in that they don't start with this very very masculine, very super heroic fantasy element. They have a much more I think a more human and approachable look to our books. At the same time, this connection to the mythic.
And also, I've noticed that the goddesses don't also all look like a swimsuit cover model. So there's lots of different ones, including the very, very fearsome war goddesses.
Oh yeah.
Those look like people I'd like to meet, but on the same side.
Well, and this has been one of the great personal delights of working on this this line, has been watching every day as the art rolls in, and you see this. I get this great picture of rolling in of Marin Gore, the dark aspect of the Earth Mother, goddess of earthquakes, dancing on a pile of bones or whatever. Wow, this is awesome! And then something else rolls in, and it's just it's fun every day.
Sounds like a good job.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic, and this is something that's really it's really important for us overall at Chaosium, is that yes, role-playing games are something that fundamentally involve words, right? They're largely spoken and printed forms of medium. We are telling stories, but we need to have images in our mind in order to really tell these stories well, and to really get that feel for the stories. And good art makes better role playing.
Yeah. Oh, no. And also, it's a very, very good way, in my case, to get people very interested in those books coming out, because I saw those first pictures and I was like, this is different.
Oh, and wait until you see one of the other ones that's on there. I mean, besides the cults book, which is it's 100 different cults from all over the central area of the setting. But I've got another one that's just entering into art production is the Sartar box set. And so this is the treatment of the Kingdom of Sartar, which is one of the main locations in the setting. And that's just already, we've got some art coming in from Asi Hikala. And it's just blowing my mind. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful art. We're going to have this, we have this great poster-sized fold-out map that Matt Ryan put together, which is, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably the most beautiful setting map I've ever seen. It's a throwback to those ICE Middle Earth maps. Mm. If you remember those from a long time ago, and those were just beautiful, beautiful maps. You know, and what's coming into that is that quality as well.
And I've heard that right, that Sartar is going to be a box set. Okay,
yes.
So you're going for box sets for the regions? Okay, yes.
I love well, what's great about a box set is you can have these you can put poster-sized maps. You can have handouts in there that are for the players and handouts for the GMs. You can,
sheets, just fun stuff,
And I'm getting sick and tired of just always having to carry around a book. And in a book, everything has to be formatted for a book. So you have the book, you have to open up the book. Hey, here's the map. It's right here. In a box set, I could just fold that open and take the map out, fold it open and show everybody it, and everybody can go ooh and ah.
Yeah, when people play games around tables again, it will be nice to lay out a map on a table and have some reference sheets on hand and have smaller booklets that you can pass around.
Honestly, just the people are going back to boxes more right now, because for like 10 years, I think it was all books and everything had to be in between inside a book. I like this kind of unwrapping a Christmas present effect of finding out, ooh, and here's a handout, and ooh, and there. And we, although we're playing just digitally right now, have started to just have a camera on a table and on the physical play materials, because we're missing moving around miniatures and having cards and real dice, and so we have someone sitting there just handling all the stuff for us. So even before we can go back to actually physically sitting at the same table again, I really love those boxes full of stuff, just playing around with that. And
we are making a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about that. It's everybody moved away from boxes in the early 1990s because the main box manufacturers in the United States shut down.
Oh, okay. That was the reason.
So the reason, there was not some sort of giant, brilliant marketing plan saying people don't like boxes. It was that there were a couple of big manufacturers who made boxes in box sets in the U.S. One of the biggest of the printers was Avalon Hill. Mm. And Avalon Hill, when it did role-playing games, all it was trying to do was just have an excuse to have their print factory constantly running, so that they, could keep their prices down. And when some of these, when most of these factories that made box sets went out of business in the 1990s, the cost of doing a box set just got to be too much. And so everybody stopped making them because
there were also, like, if you printed it in China, there were suddenly new taxes on what could be imported and exported based on, did it have dice, how it was categorized, was it a board game, was it a role-playing game? And people didn't, like customs officials, didn't really understand that a role-playing game was not a board game. And so, I mean, I personally find it weird that they would have dramatically different rates, but I'm not.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
Yes.
But
The situation has changed.
But we've done a box set with the Cthulhu starter set. We're doing a box set with the RQ starter set, and then our first real experiment with doing a non-starter set box set will be with Sartar, and I think that people will be really excited about it, and that'll give me the excuse to do more of these because I love box sets.
Okay, then hopefully people are going to love it, so you can do more box sets. Wait, so RuneQuest things coming up are the going into print is the starter set, the Red Book of Magic is coming, and you said books for the cards.
Yes.
So those are going to be 2 books?
There'll be a 2-book slipcover with another booklet with them. Okay. So it'll be a big, massive, gorgeous book set that will be quite the treasure.
Yeah, this one, Meher, if you think that the art in the Red Book of Magic is cool and unusual looking, you've just seen a tiny fraction. Just a tiny fraction.
Okay.
We just shipped the Malleus Monstrorum, the big 2-book Cthulhu monster manual, basically, that's full of the gods and monsters of the Cthulhu mythos. And it's a similar product in that it's a 2-book slipcase with art primarily by the same artist, Loic Musi. But for the RuneQuest book, we're doing it in full color throughout, whereas the Call of Cthulhu, the Malleus Monstrum, was grayscale mostly. I think the colors only were cover, and then the interiors were, black and white grayscale. And I think this one is actually more gorgeously illustrated. So it will be quite a treat. And other books in our line are the Game Master Source Book, a weapons and equipment guide, and then another thing that is escaping my mind at the moment. We have so many projects. Like right now, we have all this stuff in the queue, and we're just like choosing to focus on a particular thing and move it into production and then get onto another thing and get that going. So lots of stuff happening. There will also be a few products.
Books, starter book, cults book, Game Master Source book,
equipment.
Weapons and equipment. Don't we have another adventure one as well?
There's another adventure.
There's another adventure.
Yeah, there's a 3rd adventure source book that will be coming out, and we'll be doing some smaller things that will be released around the same time as the physical release of the starter set. So that if people just get the starter set and like burn through it immediately and want a little more like another adventure that's set in the same area that you can use the same characters for, there will be that. We'll have probably a free download of non-human characters. So if you are just, there are 14 different pre-generated characters in the box, but RuneQuest also has a very rich and diverse group of non-humans that are also usable as player characters. And so we'll have like a dark troll, a duck, a centaur,
a drake, yes.
And all of those other classic RuneQuest creatures and elder races available for play. So that if you really, you really, really, really want to play with a green elf as a character, you can do so.
Okay. Then, having covered RuneQuest, just looking at the time, let's talk a little bit about other game lines, just so they get a bit of love too. We talked the last time that we had you on, we also talked about Lords of the Middle Sea.
Yes.
And that you are working on, well, it's not a re-release, it's based on a game that was already there, but changed into an actual role-playing game.
Yes, it was a very early, I think 1978, a very early old-fashioned. What's that?
It may be older than 78.
But yeah, it was a very classic tabletop war game. With, little paper chips and a big map with hexes, and there was no actual characters. You just played a faction, and you moved your assets around the map and fought each other. And we have bizarrely decided to turn that into a.
It's not bizarre. I mean, this is the. Jeez, Jason. No, the thing is, the thing to think about is that Chaosium it was actually created by Greg in order for Greg to publish a board game. Yeah. And he had this board game called White Bear Red Moon. And it was because this was the early 70s. Greg was an aspiring fantasy writer in a period that fantasy was considered to be dead as a genre.
Yes.
And so, after getting a rejection letter from, I think it was from Kenneth Lee, who ended up becoming a very famous fantasy
author.
But she had told Greg, that fantasy is dead as a genre. There's just no. What?
We should thank her.
We should thank her. Because the publication that she was the editor for, they were trying to get out of fantasy because it was just, science fiction. That's the only stuff people were interested. Nobody's interested in this sword and sorcery mythology stuff. It's just
the Tolkien stuff had lost.
Oh yeah, come on.
Stuff had lost popularity. The reprints of the famous reprints of Conan stuff hadn't come out. The John Carter of Mars stuff was long out of print. There was most of the big fundamental works of fantasy were forgotten or just out of print and not available at that time.
So Greg had the crazy idea, well, why don't I create a board game where people can create their own fantasy story through the board game, and they can create their own fantasy epics, and they can do it, through gameplay. And that was White Bear Red Moon. So in the early history of Chaosium came out with White Bear Red Moon, Nomad Gods, Lord of the Middle Sea, Troy, and a number of other these classic games. And one of them ended up getting an RPG built for it, which was RuneQuest. RuneQuest was the RPG for White Bear Red Moon and Nomad Gods. So we're just 45 years late on doing that for Lord of the Middle Sea. It's nothing unusual for Chaosium.
It's not weird.
Exactly. We're just slow.
We're not weird, we're slow. Okay.
I'm looking, Maher, I'm waiting for 2040 when we do Troy, the RPG.
I'm not going.
Is there logical progression how long it takes for one of these games to turn into
once
an
RPG? Once we've managed to do 3 or 4 of these, then we can have somebody figure out what the mathematical ratio between release time and how long it took. Yeah. And that's sorry, we did another one. One of his games, he had Knights of, one of the early releases was Knights of King Arthur.
Yeah. And that's Pendragon.
Which became Pendragon.
Okay, so the board games were a stepping stone to.
Yeah, Call of Cthulhu.
I think we did do something that was Call of Cthulhu-ish. Elric was a board game first.
Yes.
So
Okay.
So that's the real key to understanding what Chaosium does is we're basing it all on board games.
Yes, we're just looking at very, very old Trello items and going like, oh, it's time to do the role-playing game of that.
Okay, now that I understand how it came to be, let's talk about what it actually is.
Well, it will be a standalone RPG with a line of probably some support materials like a GM screen, an adventures book, where you play the crew of an airship in a post-apocalyptic setting in which most of North America has been flooded by a combination of catastrophes. And so the year is, I think, around 2600 or so. Civilization is starting to crawl back from the ruins, and the strategic helium reserve has been rediscovered, and airships are a thing that people are using. You're still, so you as a group of player characters have yourselves an airship. You're called Voyagers because you travel around the world of the Middle Sea kingdoms, which are basically these kingdoms that are surrounding what is left of North America. All of the Chaosium games, the character types indicate like what they do. For Call of Cthulhu, you are investigators. For RuneQuest, you are adventurers. For King Arthur, you're knights. And so for Lords of the Middle Sea, you're voyagers. And you travel around and you have adventures, you try to get rich, you try to survive. It's a post-apocalyptic setting, but without so much of the bleak darkness that often pervades post-apocalyptic settings. Civilization is definitely coming back. And so
it's kind of, if you can imagine, it's sort of Renaissance. There's a big Renaissance vibe to it. Yeah, people are beginning to discover stuff that was in the ruins. You have various warlords and petty kings and whatnot that have come up. And you and your partner, your party, at least our party, we're basically a cross between the Firefly crew and a bunch of Italian mercenaries. And we're gearing up. Like one of the big adventures we're gearing up to is that it's we think we might be able to sail over the Eastern Ocean and discover Europe.
Because the Middle Sea we're talking about is not what a European might think. It's not the Mediterranean. It's the former Midwest. Just drowned.
It is the American heartland.
Yes.
So there's the Nebraska Sea and the Middle Sea that define everything between the east and west coasts of North America.
And there's been no contact with Europe or East Asia for centuries.
Yes.
So like in our current campaign, the campaign, we have the irony of a bunch of folk, most of whom, are Mexican or basically my character's name is Diego. Gosh, I'm spacing on what his last name is, but it's what?
Iglesias.
Yeah, Iglesias, Diego Iglesias, which literally is just a Spanish translation of James Church or James Kirk.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
You didn't figure that out yet, Jason?
Of course, it's Tiberio.
Yeah. Well, there actually was a bandit a Mexican bandit in the period when California was part of the Mexican Empire and then when it became part of the United States, and there was a bandit gang that operated near where I grew up in Clayton, and one of the bandits had his name was Tiberius. Yeah, and I always thought that was cool. So, but anyways, you do stuff like, but basically, it's kind of Wild West, kind of Renaissance, a lot of exploration, a lot of getting screwed over by people. You're trying to make. You're trying to make yourself wealthy, and of course,
make an honest living.
Or make an honest living. Wow.
And
so far, it doesn't sound very honest what you're creating.
Now, I should also list, because I'm sure our marketing people will insist that I mention one of the unique selling points of the game. It is a post-apocalyptic game that does not involve mutations. Like characters don't have, crazy chameleon abilities or second heads or, radiant skin. They can't shoot lasers from their eyes. It is a world of humans, basically. Another thing is because the apocalypse or the apocalyptic series of events that caused this
the catastrophe.
The catastrophe happened in sometime like the GM knows, the book says, but the players don't know. Sometime in roughly the mid 1970s or 80s, the technology that, you know, people are scavenging reflects that. They're unlike Gamma World. You're not finding secret underground bases full of robots and lasers and UFOs. I mean, I love Gamma World quite a bit, but this isn't that game. And so it's a lot more of a, like Jeff said, it has more of a Wild West sort of a theme to it. And it also uses the basic role-playing game system, which everyone is familiar with. So anybody who's played RuneQuest or Call of Cthulhu or any BRP game should be able to understand it quite quickly. And it's probably the most streamlined version of any of them so far, I think.
So you are playing it. When can we play it? That's the question.
Well, if you would like to do a demo playtest of it, I'm happy to run it for you, or Jeff could run it for you.
Be happy to. That'd be a blast.
We are sending it out to some selected playtest groups pretty soon. As soon as the starter set for RuneQuest is off of my table, then I get back to focusing a little bit on Lords of the Middle Sea. We've had a few external playtests that have been quite nice. We were actually interviewed by N-World, by an author there who does a column. And afterwards, he contacted me and he said, I want to write something for this game because I loved everything you said about it. And so I gave him some specs and he turned in a tremendously awesome adventure. So, yeah, I mean, we're happy to do some streams of it or whatnot.
Let's do it.
It's a matter of time. If only we knew somebody who had a large, streaming population and who was up for gaming.
Who was actually doing it. Let's talk about it. And also then, I guess, over 2021, you can probably say a little bit more about when it's actually going to be published.
Late. I mean, it will be probably available in PDF either late this year or early next. We're still getting art sorted out for it, and the manuscript is in a final set of polish, or the process of being final polished. And then we'll send it out to playtesters, and they'll tear it apart and send it back to us, and we'll have to fix everything. And that takes time. Art is primarily the big...
And then, and of course, Jason, there's that other... the other game that we do at Chaosium. There's the other game, Call of Cthulhu, but there's also Pendragon, which also
the other game.
The other game. And since we're gearing up to getting a starter set for the new edition of Pendragon out, so to be then followed by the new edition of Pendragon.
And then there's the Rivers of London RPG.
Oh yes! Yeah. I can't believe I almost forgot that. I'm going to apologize to the next person up. We need a few more minutes to just quickly talk about the Rivers of London RPG because I'm a huge fan.
I knew that, but yeah, we're just trying to make sure that each of our games has a chance to make a splash, so that we can support them all when they come out.
But all of these games, all the games that we're working on, they reflect the tastes that we have at Chaosium. And Rivers of London is one of the very few licensed properties that we're doing. Yes.
Just quickly grabbing.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, I got them in the Forbidden Planet, where I'm always 1 week early or 1 week late to meet Ben Aronovich. So
Ben is fantastic to be working with on this, but we are huge. Yeah, we are. My wife and I absolutely love the series. Lynn, who is the line editor on it, gigantic fan of the series. And that's the sort of thing, if we're going to do a licensed property, I'm much more interested in doing something like Rivers of London, because I like the style of writing and I like the storytelling that Ben has. And I'm much more interested to do something like that I feel has a lot of ongoing possibilities for us to tell cool new stories that are our own stories about this, rather than do a licensed property because, hey, this set of movies just came out. Isn't this exciting? Let's do the RPG of it.
Yes.
Well, and another thing, too, is that it's one of the things that's wonderful about working with somebody like Ben, and perhaps if you talk to Lynn, you can hear more about it, but he's really excited about it. He's enthusiastic and actively involved in the development of the game. And so that's something that you don't.
We're not supposed to say that. Shh.
Oh, I'm not supposed to say that?
Everyone just forget that.
Yeah, it's not something you generally get if you're working on, like, you know, a movie adaptation or something based on somebody who's dead. You know,
they're not going to be involved a lot.
Right.
Yes.
Hopefully not.
But yeah, so where that one is that Lynn is doing the second big round of playtesting, and this is to make sure that all of the magic system really captures the feel of the Newtonian magic that is in the books. Which is actually to me is one of the coolest thing in the books is the concept behind the magic system. Yes. And so to make sure that the magic and gameplay reinforces and builds with the concepts that are in the game. That's, you know, a key part of what now needs to be. We've done preliminary playtesting on it, got a ton of feedback. Now we're going to do a much bigger, more in-depth playtesting to make sure that we got, you know, all of those key beats into this. And then it's art is moving forward on this one. I just had to sign off on having our cartographer work on doing a bunch of really cool maps for, you know, not just of London, blah blah blah. I mean, yeah.
Well,
you can get that. That's not, but of things like the isometric map of the folly, all the rooms and everything in this. Some things, you know, playing around with, well, what are all the named river goddesses and where are the rivers? You know, where is all of this? Fleet, we you know, is easy enough to find, Fleet Street, but, you know, there's a whole mess of them in this. And you know, this is part that I get all excited about because, you know, this is where I can start really visualizing everything in this. And Lynn is doing an absolutely amazing job on this. My involvement is very small, just on a yay, Matt, you get to work on cool Rivers of London stuff now instead of cool RuneQuest stuff or cool Cthulhu stuff. He's got a really
handing out the assignments.
So, yes, exactly.
The chat is asking where they have to throw the money at to get the game and when they will have a chance to throw the money.
We never announce a title,
a date, yes,
a date until it is in the warehouse. We'll sometimes say it is in the boats. It is shipping to the warehouse, but given the number of factors that you just can't control, we absolutely never give it will be available on this date estimation, because it just seems like an invitation to create frustration by players who are rightfully so being told, hey, you said this would be here on Thursday and it's Friday already, and what's up?
There was on some forum, there was somebody who broke down my answers on that question and came up with a translation guide.
Oh,
which is, if I have a date, if I say that it's going to be ready by this, it's Chaosium has the book, it's sitting in their warehouse. They can ship it whenever they want. It's a good date. If Jeff says soon, it hasn't gone to the printer yet.
yes.
But he presumably has some idea more or less when it'll go to the printer. And when he says he's working on it, it means he's working on it.
Yeah.
And right now you're working.
And right now we're working on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Right now, the printing situation, the shipping and distribution situation, worldwide, anything that's crossing national borders or getting in a boat and going through customs is in this high variability field of who knows how long that will take.
Oh, geez. I mean, did you guys hear the nightmare story that we had trying to get a pallet of the Malleus Monstrorum from our warehouse in Poland to our warehouse in the UK? Because of Brexit, it got turned around at the border, and shipped back to Poland.
Shipped back to Poland. Well,
And yeah, I mean,
Polish fans are happy.
yeah.
Yeah, they don't have any room to store it, and they can't.
Oh.
So, I think you're getting we need to wrap this up face.
Yeah, unfortunately. But that was also, oh my gosh, are the books now kind of circling around Europe constantly on the road trying to get
Sometimes.
somewhere?
Actually, sometimes.
Flapping in the sky above us. Our night gaunt messengers are taking them from warehouse to warehouse, seeking a friendly port.
Oh, our night gaunts, can you actually trust them to deliver them? I don't think that's
They make
They like to
lousy.
tickle, but they're all right.
No, nightgowns make lousy delivery services, but they're less likely to murder you in your sleep than Shoggoth. So
that's true for most of the Mythos creatures, that they're less likely to murder you than a Shoggoth, but I'll take the night gowns, I think. Don't send me your keys, please.
No,
no, they just tickle you.
it is terrible.
Yeah, no. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to the next time we're going to talk about it, and I promise I'm not forgetting to talk about Rivers of London at that time. Although it's probably going to be, we're working on it again, but still, I'm hyped.
We could direct you to people who know more than us, perhaps.
Well, that's not hard.
Yeah, that's Lynn.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jeff and Jason. And I hope you have a great Sunday, and stay safe.
Thanks,
It
and
was great
too.
having you here.
and enjoy.
Have a wonderful HeinzCon.
Thank you so much.
Always a pleasure.
Tschüssi.
Goodbye, you two. Tschüss. Oh.